per day for Christmas that will be expanded to 4 people. For most families that like to celebrate Christmas together, 4 people from outside your family bubble generally doesn't make up the entire family that would want to come for Christmas. So it's a lot of people trying to calculate who they can invite and how.
More than 85% of the adult population in the Netherlands is fully vaccinated using the old double-shot yardstick, but fewer than 9% of adults had received their booster as of Saturday. The main news again, the White House says President Biden will not unveil new COVID-19 restrictions when he addresses the American people about the Omicron variant on Tuesday. Britain's Queen Elizabeth is shelving plans to spend Christmas at her Sandringham estate due to the variant spread. And a super typhoon has killed more than 375 people in the Philippines. The Red Cross is issuing urgent pleas for humanitarian assistance. There's more from us on Twitter @FeatureStory. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. A month after the death of leader Kim Jong-il, North Korea's 24.5 million citizens have returned to their regular daily routines this week, holding a festive synchronized disco jump rope gala in Pyongyang's main public square. Life in the hermetic communist nation is reportedly beginning to normalize following the protracted mourning period, with citizens once again donning their brightly colored uniforms and performing intricate gymnastics routines in perfect unison.
It is an inspiring sight to see so many loyal citizens find the strength to unfurl their long silken streamers and do dozens of tandem backflips set to dance music.
Observers reported that new North Korean leader Kim Jong-un nodded once in approval of the disco jump rope gala, signaling an official transfer of power.
A recent study from the Centers for Disease Control finds that over 100 million children are being exposed to harmful levels of stupidity in their own homes. Hear the debate about secondhand ignorance on the next In the Know.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever's on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
All kinds of crazy stuff in the news. As always, things are really kicking into gear, as I think we predicted here on Free Talk Live. Tomorrow, of course, officially the first day of winter. The shortest day of the year, December 21st. I believe that is the first day of wintertime. And right on time, right on cue, the Western governments of the world are cracking down. They're locking down. They are mandating vaccination passports, cranking up to require boosters. So all of these things are happening.
Yeah, nobody could have known that Fauci would say that some of the measures would stay intact forever.
Except people did know. We knew. And we talked about it here on the show 6 months ago and 12 months ago and 18 months ago, and people called us crazy, saying, oh, no, that will never happen. It's just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we're now going on, what, 3 years?
And there are certain kind of harbingers of things to come, and the biggest cities like San Francisco and New York City are, leading the charge into more COVID tyranny. And
Keene is right behind them. I mean, Keene is doing everything he can to be the little tiny copycat of San Francisco and San Diego.
I don't know.
It's not that bad, but I mean, if they could get their way, they absolutely would.
That's true. I mean, Keene is a leftist bastion in New Hampshire. It is not the freest city of all of New Hampshire. It is the place that you go to if you want to have some opposition, if you want to have a challenge.
One thing I would never thought that I would have said is that the cops in Keene are kind of the reason I think that they can't go any crazier with the mask mandates and stuff.
Because the cops don't want to enforce this, you mean?
Yeah, the cops don't want to enforce it, and the law that they came out with today, actually, has so many carve-outs, I think just because the cops don't want to spend their time enforcing mask mandates.
And I haven't read it very closely, but as I understand it, this law is, at the very minimum, an improvement over the previous one, as this one doesn't fine the businesses for the behavior of their customers.
Correct.
It fines the individual, and presumably for the behavior of their employees as well. It fines the employee or the customer rather than the business. And that's good, You should punish the person who, quote,
it's not good,
commits the crime.
It's better than last year, is what you're saying.
Yes, it is a very small improvement, but an improvement nonetheless.
And it's not clear whether anyone actually did receive a ticket for it last year. I think that there was a few businesses that were intimidated by the code enforcement department on that.
I know of at least one was, maybe two.
But I don't think anybody actually ever got the ticket. So it never got to that point. No one ever actually had to go to court or challenge it.
Man, it makes me want to launch a business. Just, I don't care. I'll sell, cheap candles from Walmart for, a penny over markup, just so I can say I have a store. We're not enforcing the mask mandate, and challenge the city of Keene to really come after me over this crap.
But that's the thing. They won't do that because they know we're going to take them to court, because we already did. You and I and a local business owner here of a local pho noodle place that previously was called Pho Keene Great. Sadly, she had to change the name of the business recently. I guess she didn't have to.
She wanted to be
there
nice.
was some sort of a court case with her former co-owner, and anyway, it's sad.
Now it's Funky Noodle or something, right?
Funky Noodle or something. Yeah. So sad turnout as far as that goes.
I know, man. That name was glorious.
Such a great name. But anyway, so we sued the city of Keene and the governor over, because he had a mask mandate at the time. This was back in September of last year. And then finally, in August of this year, so it literally took 11 months for any kind of ruling to come out of the federal court system on this question.
I mean, how much of that was the government's fault, and how much of that was our attorney's fault?
It was the government's fault for the most part. I mean, our attorney filed the papers when he needed to file them, and then they just dragged their feet because they're not in a hurry to make any kind of decision on anything.
The government's never in a hurry. It's not their lives aren't the ones that are affected by nonsense.
Well, they've got their own nonsense going on. I mean, you can't even walk in that courthouse without a mask on.
They went to
kick you out.
They went to a party the night that they had decided to instate the mask mandate.
You're talking about the city of Keene council this year.
Yeah.
Allegedly went to a party. We heard this through the rumor mill. And it's from a good source, I would say, so it probably did happen. So all the counselors went and partied together, I guess, after they did this.
Yeah, there's nothing shady or suspicious about 5 city councilors, or 15, however many there are.
It was 13 that voted, I think, in favor. No, 11 in favor, 3 against, I think was what 10-3. There was a couple that weren't there.
That's actually better than I would have expected. I figured it was unanimous. But there's nothing shady or weird at all about all of these city councilors, hanging out together at a party where there's no public eye, no accountability, nothing weird about this whatsoever.
How much you want to bet they weren't wearing masks on the inside?
Oh, of course they weren't.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't apply to them. The laws never apply to the people who write them.
So, I don't know where it was. Oh, yeah, I was going to say. So, it took them 11 months to finally come out with a verdict, if you will, in the case, and it was that they're throwing the case out. I guess that's not really a verdict, but it's a thing that the court did. Threw our case out, wrote like a 24-page opinion about why they were tossing the case out, which boiled down to basically, Ian and Aria and Malaise, they didn't actually have any kind of damage from this.
Yes, we would have had to have been fined.
We didn't get the fine, so therefore they didn't have standing to bring this lawsuit. Case dismissed. So the fact that Malaise had 2 of her businesses go out of business, 2 of her restaurants, her very successful restaurants, went under during the COVID crackdown in 2020. That apparently wasn't enough damage for this judge to keep
for it
the
to
case
qualify,
moving.
It has to be direct damage, right? That's how the government escapes all of the accountability. You having to close your businesses because you can't bring customers in because they're terrified after 18 months of media propaganda. You can't sue the government for that because they didn't directly do it to you. But if they actually issued you that fine, oh yeah. And that's why even though Malaise, the owner of Funky Noodle, rents from the city of Keene and never enforced the mask mandate.
That's right.
That's why they never fined
her.
They left her completely alone.
And she's still going to continue to not enforce the mask mandate. That lady's a hero.
I went to a different restaurant today of one of the people who spoke out against the mandates, and he's just closed his entire lobby. It's just take out.
You can't even go in and order?
Not if you order online. If you order via the phone, presumably you can go inside and pick it up.
Wow, but all the tables are closed?
Yeah.
Can't eat there? That sucks.
No indoor dining. Very frustrating.
That is awful. So, but you're talking about Keene. Keene is a shadow of, a place like New York City. Keene is like the worst of New Hampshire, which is for the most part pretty unrestricted. I mean, to the governor's credit, he doesn't deserve a lot, but I suspect it's because he's facing re-election next year. He has not reinstituted a statewide mask mandate, and he has not reinstituted like half of the things or all of the things that he did during. There's no state of emergency, for instance, here in New Hampshire right now, even though the mainstream media is caterwauling about how the cases are record high in New Hampshire. They've never been this high before. Hospitals are clogging, blah, blah, blah. The whole fear-mongering thing is going on hot and heavy. But for whatever reason, Sununu's just saying, no, we're just not going to do what we did last year.
It's because people have a short-term memory, and they're going to forget about 2020 and just be like, oh, our governor was a good governor, good Republican, and reelect him.
He also said a year ago that the mandates weren't necessary because in New Hampshire, we can trust one another as our neighbors to do the things that are in our best interest and that won't harm one another.
And then he put in the mandates.
No, he said that's after he repealed the mandates.
Oh.
So it
How
would
convenient.
It would be very difficult for him to walk back that statement and go, oh, I was wrong. You people in New Hampshire, you're horrible human beings, and you won't be kind to one another without this mandate.
Well, I want to give you an update from New York City, and then we'll talk about New York, because these are the worst places to be as far as, California, it's giving it a run for its money. California's pretty bad. San Francisco, awful. New York City, maybe worse than San Francisco. But there is a mayor that has been elected. There's a mayor-elect, right? So they had an election in...
Is this the Bitcoin mayor guy?
This is the Bitcoin mayor guy, right? Like, hey, he's a cool guy, right? Cool guy. He's into Bitcoin. No, he's not cool.
Yeah, I didn't think he was. Remember? He was like, I'm going to study the issue, and we're going to see what New York City needs.
Yeah, a bunch of the New Yorkers apparently thought this guy was going to come in and undo what the previous or the current mayor, Bloomberg, who's an absolute tyrant, and he's terrible. Now Bloomberg's talking about canceling New Year's Eve, which already is a vaccinated-only event, but they're talking about canceling it now. Anyway, we'll tell you what this other guy has to say, because I guess he's taking office on January 1st. What's he going to do in New York City? It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones open if you want to join us here. 603-283-6160 is the number. That's 603-283-6160. We're raising funds for Give Directly. It is the first nonprofit that allows you to give directly to people living in extreme poverty. We're talking about some serious poverty, like you got to walk 5 miles to get some potable water. That kind of poverty. We're specifically targeting Bomet and Kilifi counties in Kenya. And if you want to help some folks out, you can go to give.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live is matching your donations up to a total of $30,000. And so whether you do it sooner or later, we can assist there. And we are helping Give Directly. They have delivered over $400 million in the last couple decades to over 1 million people who really need it. Research shows that giving cash to people in poverty can help drive a range of important positive changes in their lives, like employment, nutrition, health, and education. Plus, cash allows individuals to invest in what they need instead of relying on aid organizations and donors thousands of miles away choosing for them. So if that's what you prefer, get on over to give.freetalklive.com. You can help these folks out in Kenya. That's give.freetalklive.com. We go to your phone calls, and then we'll talk about the mayor-elect in New York City and what he's got planned. Is he going to roll back the current mayor's tyranny?
Of course not.
Let's go to Ripple in Texas. You're on Free Talk Live, Ripple.
Yeah, I wanted to share a conspiracy theory about the vaccines with you guys.
Sure.
And, they don't appear to work for stopping the COVID virus. And
no, and that's what they kept telling us in the beginning was, oh, yes, this will stop COVID dead in its tracks. And now the narrative is, oh, it'll help you if you get COVID. It won't be as bad. That's what it's changed to.
Right. And we do know it's an experimental gene therapy. So why would they want to alter the genes of everyone on the planet? And my theory is that it's so they could harvest organs, so that they can make all the organs more compatible, so they don't get rejected by the host.
Is there any evidence that the COVID-19 vaccine affects people's blood types? Because that's the reason that organs generally get rejected, as I understand it.
Well, even if you have a blood type match, like the chance of rejection is pretty high, and they have to take drugs for the rest of their lives.
You really think that's what's behind this? They want to make it easier to transplant organs? I mean, that seems
like a good, benevolent thing, just done in a shady way.
No, I don't really think that's, but I just thought it would be a fun thought experiment.
But what do you mean by harvest organs? Like you think that they want to make it to where they can take the organs to do nefarious things behind the scenes, not just help people who are in car accidents or something?
Right, like the aging global elite that needs organs to try to live forever.
Yeah, I have heard something about those people like to inject babies' blood into their veins or something. That's apparently a thing. I've heard that our co-host Mark Edge is interested in that therapy. Hey, Ripple, anything else you want to share tonight?
No, that's all I got.
Thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it. The number here, 603-283-6160. Eric Adams isn't mayor yet, this according to Bloomberg.com, but New York City's mayor-elect plans to make changes to the city's COVID-19 response when he takes over City Hall on January 1st. And you can...
That sounds promising.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Well, it makes changes sort of suggest he's going to change course or something, right?
Oh, yeah. No, in reaction to the rapid rise in COVID cases.
See, yes, that's the other part of the sentence that...
And hospitalizations in the city this week. The mayor-in-waiting pledged...
A better idea. I just want to throw this out there. A better idea than doing anything he would have done would be not to fire 20% of your hospital staff.
Yeah, that would help.
That would be a better idea than implementing more mandates. Just stop firing your nurses and doctors.
Well, now this isn't a mandate. He's got a pledge to create a new color-coded warning system. See, this is what people have needed the whole time.
I mean, it's that color-coded warning system that's kept us safe from Al-Qaeda for the last 20 years.
You know what the current level is, right?
Isn't it always like high or something?
Wait, what are you guys talking about? There's an Al-Qaeda color warning?
There's a terror threat level. Yeah.
She's young. Yeah, they came up with some stupid color-coded thing. It's like yellow, red, orange, and it all has to do with what the level of danger is from terror strikes or whatever.
Just in all of the United States? Or
I guess, yeah.
I mean, it was never below yellow, I don't think. So it's like the Australian fire hazard thing, where high is its lowest setting, and then it goes all the way up to like cataclysm or something.
Oh my goodness.
And he even says, we're going to put in place a color-coded system that brings a level of clarity based on where we are, something similar to the terrorist alert.
Wow. But there already was something like that. I remember at the beginning...
here it is, from the Homeland Security Advisory System. It starts out at low, and then goes up to guarded, and then medium, and then high, and then I think very high.
Does it say where the current level is?
It doesn't. No. Okay. I'm sure I can find that, though. What is the current terror threat color?
Must be at some fear level, like you were saying, never lower than yellow.
We definitely already had something like that because at the beginning
of COVID?
At the beginning of 2020, or the middle of 2020, my sister was going to come visit me in Texas, and she was in Utah on a military base, and my dad wouldn't let her go because if she went to a place that was like a red zone, like San Antonio supposedly was, then my whole family would have had to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Oh, right, because of the military requirements.
So there definitely was a color code. Like, I don't see how he thinks it's new.
Well, I think there was a national level kind of color coding that they assigned to different areas of the country, like you're talking about. But this will be just for New York City. So New York City now has its own, or will, when he takes office in a couple weeks.
To answer the question about the current terror threat level, the whole idea, I mean, they wasted billions of dollars of taxpayers' money on this stupid idea. It's so irrelevant now that we don't even have a color-coded threat level. It's just a bunch of text. So
wow.
That's how useless and irrelevant it is.
He says if we hear green or yellow or red, New Yorkers should know automatically that this is a moment that we should be taking extra precautions.
Wait, so even green is extra precautions?
Of course. Adams said
the lowest threat level is high for a reason.
He said the city had to be more clear with residents about the threat of COVID. He said, quote, we have to speak in one language and a clear language on how we're going to push back on these increases.
So he's saying New Yorkers are stupid.
Oh, God, it's yellow. I'm scared. I mean, that's basically what he's saying. These people aren't scared enough, so we have to make them convinced that, oh, no, code yellow in New York City.
He also said he would consider implementing vaccination requirements for the city's 1 million public school children if his health advisors recommend the move, and you know they will, because I bet you they're the same health advisors that are advising the current mayor.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is whenever politicians change over, people always think like, all right, we got the Democrat in, or all right, our Republican guy's going in. But the bureaucracy itself almost never changes.
You would think people would know that. Fauci was the guy under Trump and Biden.
Yeah.
Nothing changed.
And I think he's been there since like I don't know, the 80s.
These elected leaders are just that. They're just mouthpieces, pushing the ideas that these bureaucrats give them.
Oh, and by the way, Trump apparently was on some kind of interview with, I think, Bill O'Reilly recently, and he's pimping the vaccine. So
because that's what the bureaucrats have told him to do.
Right. Well, even he's not even in office anymore, and he's still, toting the official line on the vaccine. So, people thought Trump was somehow with them and, against the system or against the swamp. It's like, come on, wake up.
They're all the swamp.
He's in on it.
All of them.
Yeah. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. But it's not just about New York City and what the plans are for the tyrant-elect there. Bonnie's got a creepy story about what the legislature is going to be considering in a couple weeks there as well. It's Free Talk Live.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
When we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden will address the American people on Tuesday as the Omicron variant continues to spread. But the White House says he is not planning to introduce any new restrictions. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the president will again urge Americans to get their booster shots and offer a stark warning of the risks the unvaccinated are taking.
This is not a speech about locking the country down. This is a speech outlining and being direct and clear with the American people about the benefits of being vaccinated, the steps we're going to take to increase access and to increase testing, and the risks posed to unvaccinated individuals.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson also says he's not instituting fresh restrictions as Omicron causes a record spike in cases in the UK. Speaking after a cabinet meeting, he said he can't rule out the need to take action soon.
Unfortunately, I must say to people, we will have to reserve the possibility of taking further action to protect the public.
There were nearly 92,000 new cases reported in the UK today. Moderna reported positive news about its booster shot and its efficacy against the Omicron variant. FSN's Washington correspondent Caroline Malone with that piece of the story.
A booster of the Moderna vaccine, given as a half dose of the original vaccines, increases antibody levels against Omicron by 37 times. The vaccine manufacturer confirmed the increased protection from preliminary data in a statement Monday. Moderna's chief medical officer, Paul Burton, said it should provide a good level of protection as we go into the holiday season. Health experts are warning of a rapid spread in COVID in the coming weeks, with as many as 1 million cases a day possible. Pfizer and Moderna boosters now both show some protection from getting the virus, while other vaccine boosters may provide protection against serious illness, but not from contracting the new coronavirus variant. Caroline Malone, Washington.
Britain's Queen Elizabeth has shelved plans to spend Christmas at her Sandringham estate, a precautionary approach, says Buckingham Palace, of her decision to remain at Windsor Castle rather than travel as Omicron spreads. Other headlines today: a super typhoon has killed more than 375 people in the Philippines, where the Red Cross is issuing urgent pleas for humanitarian assistance. Some coastal communities have been utterly ravaged by the storm. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, says he will pay the US government more than $11 billion in taxes this year. He made the claim on Twitter after a prominent Democrat Senator, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, accused him of freeloading off the American people. And the Attorney General of New York is accusing former President Donald Trump of repeated efforts to thwart her investigation into his business empire. He launched a lawsuit today seeking to halt her inquiries. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here if you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I want to say thank you to a couple of our supporters on AMPS, which is the new way to support Free Talk Live. Advertise, market, promote, and support. That's what the money that you might contribute allows us to do. We ask for $5 a month, but some people go way and above the Call of Duty, and the gentleman tonight here, I want to point out, JCOM 3030 is a new diamond level supporter. I added a new level since sometimes we get people
I saw there were a few new ones, actually.
Yeah, that want to go a little higher than $25 a month. So I think diamond is $50 a month. So thank you, at least JCOM 3030, and also Michael Lamau. I'm sure I'm butchering his last name. He's also a platinum level. Thanks to the both of you guys. Definitely appreciate the support over on our new program, amps.freetalklive.com. That takes you over to our Patreon page, where you can learn more about, some of the perks that you get access to as a supporter. And one of those is the chance to win the upcoming Bitbox giveaway that we're going to do on New Year's Eve. We'll be here doing an after show. So once the radio show is over at 10 p.m. Eastern, we'll take a little break, take the dog out for a walk or whatever, and then probably at around 10:30 we'll start up an after show called Freer Talk Live, which does not have the FCC restrictions because we'll be internet only, and then we'll do the Bitbox giveaway somewhere in that episode as we ring in the new year here on Freer Talk Live. So the Bitbox, by the way, is a 100% open source hardware wallet. So if you've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin, you definitely want to check out the Bitbox. Go to box.freetalklive.com. You can get one for 5% off by using code FTL over at box.freetalklive.com. But if you're one of our amps, then you qualify for that drawing at the end of the year. So check out amps.freetalklive.com. We've been talking about the latest out of New York, and specifically New York City first, with the mayor-elect Eric Adams, who made some headlines before he was elected for being pro-Bitcoin. He was saying he wanted New York City to be the biggest Bitcoin city anywhere, I guess. Or
Keene already
like
beat him on that.
Oh, yeah. Keene kicks every other American city's ass. Now, there are a couple of international cities that...
Tokyo has a speed, I think.
No.
Really?
No way.
I thought they did.
With the population they've got in Tokyo?
Well, per capita, no.
Yeah, I always look at per capita.
Per capita, isn't it in the world that Keene is number one?
I don't know. It's been a while. I did update the coin map recently again. I went through and I did an audit of all of New Hampshire, and a lot of businesses had gone either under or...
We definitely beat Manchester and Portsmouth, so I don't see how we're not number one in the world.
I mean,
Portsmouth has probably gone under fast.
The last I looked, Caracas was pretty solid in Venezuela, but then
that makes sense.
But then again, auditing that is hard to do, right? Like, because I can't easily call the Caracas vendors up and ask them, "Hey, do you still take Bitcoin?" So you don't know how many are truly accurate, whereas our number is actually
El
accurate.
Salvador just doesn't count, right?
El Salvador shouldn't count because they're doing it by law.
Yeah.
So that's a great point.
Well, and it's also Lightning Network, so it's trash.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Fake Bitcoin.
And there's another city, the Ledger series that did the short documentary about the Crypto 6. The Ledger is another hardware wallet company that has a YouTube channel, and they did a really great 10-minute long documentary about the Crypto 6, which is me and Arya and Nobody and some other great people that we love a lot. That was a fantastic documentary.
It was very well done.
You can see it over at freetalklive.com. It's one of the posts from the last month or so. You can just scroll down the page and you'll see the video there. But if you go to that channel and you look at the previous video, it's about a city in somewhere in Europe. I don't remember where offhand.
Wasn't it Spain?
No, I don't think it was Spain. I think it was more the northern
Portugal?
part of... No, I think it was more the northern part of Europe. But anyway, somewhere in Europe...
New Zealand?
No, where they call it like Bitcoin Cash City or something like that. Or Bitcoin
So it's a
City.
Bitcoin Cash mecca?
I think so. So. And so I have not compared it. I did not go and check it, but it sounded like they've gotten a lot done there because there's an actual company that going around pitching businesses on taking cryptocurrency. Whereas here in New Hampshire, we just kind of do it whenever we can, and you and I, Arya, can't really do it as much because we can't actually spend it. I won't ask somebody if they take crypto if I can't actually pull out my wallet.
I know, man, it's such an
it.
awkward thing. I will still ask them because, especially if I know the answer is going to be no, just because I know that it's just one more customer for them who has asked them about cryptocurrency, and eventually someone like Chris Wade can go in there.
True, but I feel bad if I cannot do it myself. I don't want to ask him about it because then I feel like I'm being disingenuous.
Well, see, I would feel that way, but I'm still going to go back to that store if they take cryptocurrency, and I will just spend USD and give them, USD simply because I support their taking cryptocurrency. And if the owner's there, I may even explain that to him. It's like, look, I would love to use crypto here, but because the government is sort of cross with me at the moment, I can't do that. So here's some dollars instead.
You don't think that would spook them to tell them that
I wouldn't put it that.
They kicked my door in, pointed guns at me.
They did threaten to shoot me at one point, but hey, look, I support that thing.
It's worth it.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I would instead tell them, oh yeah, I forgot my crypto at home or something. So no, because that would be a lie. I don't have access to it right now. There we go.
So back to this Eric Adams guy in New York City. He's going to be taking over the mayorship there after the current tyrant leaves on January 1st. He's talking about putting in a color-coded system for COVID fear, and then goes on saying he's considering implementing vaccination requirements for the 1 million public school children if that is recommended to him. He's open, he says, to requiring booster shots for New Yorkers to be considered fully vaccinated and thereby be able to enter into bars, restaurants, and cultural venues. So it's a guarantee at this point. I mean, with language like that, he's basically saying he's going to do these things, right? Like he's just not committing to it. He's just saying...
He's waiting until a bureaucrat tells him to do it.
Right. Oh, my health advisor said we need to have children vaccinated, that we need booster shots for all New Yorkers, so I, the mayor, am going to implement that. So he's not the official mayor yet. He doesn't have a health advisor yet, but on January 1st, he will.
And this is why the machinery of government never changes, no matter who people elect. They think, oh, Obama's going to go in and change it, but those people behind him, the advisors, never, ever change. People don't realize it. They think, oh, we got a new mayor, everything's going to be totally different, except the people telling that mayor what he needs to do are the very same ones that were telling the previous mayor what to do. And you expect anything to change?
Yeah, here he actually just spells it right out, like exactly what we were just saying. Quote, we're going to continue to have this soft touch to tell parents we need for you to vaccinate your children, but if we reach the tipping point that the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is saying, Eric, we need to put a mandate in place for our schools, then I'm going to follow their advice, he said. If my Department of Health and Mental Hygiene says, Eric, we need to be mandating booster shots, I'm going to mandate booster shots.
Oh my God. Well,
I'm going to do whatever my handlers tell me to do.
I can't believe that they're even trying to say that they're the ones on the side of mental hygiene.
Or that they're having a soft touch at the moment in New York City in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, he takes over in less than 2 weeks at this point, and he's weighing whether to reappoint the city's current health commissioner. I like him, Adams said of Dr. Dave Cholinsky, or Choksy. He's one of the names we're considering. So I guess he could, if he wanted to, put somebody else in the position.
In one of thousands of positions that are constantly advising him.
He's probably just another talking head. I'm pretty sure even like Fauci's just a talking head for his bosses.
Also true. I mean, for every mayor, there's 1,000 bureaucrats behind him telling him what to do, and there's 2,000 bureaucrats behind those 1,000 bureaucrats telling them what to do, and then there's 5,000 behind those.
Oh, and then he points out something that we've heard before from the prime minister of places like New Zealand and in Australia, where they've been using this excuse there. He says, I don't want my city closed down again, and it's going to take a lot for me to close down the city again. So what he's saying is he wants to manage the cases through mandatory vaccinations.
That's not at all what he wants to do. He just wants to put it off so that he doesn't sound like a bad guy. Yeah. He's going to shut down New York City, absolutely. All of these people saying, I don't want to do it, but if it comes to it, they're just going to do it eventually.
Well, yeah, and he'll say eventually, well, you guys made me do it because you didn't get the vaccines when we said to get them. If y'all had just gone out and gotten to 99% vaccination,
I totally understand it. I made my last boyfriend punch me because I talked back to him.
There's more coming up here in moments. This is Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Phones open if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio with you, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
So we're giving you some the updates from one of the worst places to be in the United States, New York, and specifically New York City. We're going to move out from New York City and look at the whole state and see what sort of awful things they have up their dirty sleeves. But before that, we're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts here. Again, 603-283-6160.
I can't imagine how bad New York City really is now. I mean, even before COVID-19, New York City was an abysmal, dreary, awful place in my experience. It was just full. It's like our Matrix server if it was a city.
Did you go there?
Yes.
What brought you to
I
the
passed
city?
through briefly. The very first time I came through New Hampshire, actually, Muslims for Liberty needed to pick up some clothing at an Indian shop on 7th Street. So we ended up there.
Where was that? Like Queens or something?
In downtown. Downtown is all I know.
See, there's different boroughs, right,
Yeah, right.
in New York City. So you got to get the 7th Street could be in Queens, or it could be in the Bronx, or it could be in Manhattan.
It wasn't in the Bronx. I remember that because we passed through the Bronx upon leaving.
Did it look kind of like upscale and fancy?
No.
Okay.
No.
Then it was probably not
definitely
Manhattan. Not that it looks that fancy in Manhattan, but it's nicer there a little bit.
The very first thing that happened when I got there was observing two very heavily accented New Yorkers having a very loud, animated argument about a parking space.
Oh, okay. Welcome to New York.
It's Seinfeld 100%. Very first thing that happened to me in New York City is I got to see that.
That sounds believable. Did any cops choke somebody for selling cigarettes while you were there?
Not while I was there.
Okay. That happened there, too.
It did.
Yeah. So we can continue here with the latest tyranny from New York. Because remember, things that happen in New York and in California, they tend to spread. And indeed, Boston is now announcing a vaccination requirement for indoor activities. We can tell you about that, too. But first, Sam is on the line in Ohio. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Sam. Sam? In Ohio? Going once. Sam in Ohio going twice. All right, well, we'll see if we can. Maybe he's in a bad cell or something. We'll give him another chance in a bit. So, Bonnie, you've got a pretty creepy story out of New York State. Now, normally, generally I have a policy against talking about potential legislation, just because most of it, a lot of it doesn't happen, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's proposed in front of any legislature, and most of it probably doesn't get passed. But every now and then there's something that is so bad and so potentially egregious, and since it's New York, so likely to pass. What have they got, Bonnie? What's going on?
Basically, they want to turn New York into Australia, like Australia number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Says, this is from Reason, and it says, New York bill would let the state put people in detention if deemed a significant threat to the public health.
And they define a significant threat to the public health as being someone who is unvaccinated?
I think they can define it however they want.
It's just up to the governor's discretion in the wording. It's so vague.
Governors have never abused their power in the past, so it'll be fine.
New York lawmakers are mulling a bill that would allow the state to detain anyone carrying or suspected of carrying a contagious disease that makes them a significant threat to the public health.
Right. Now, we know that COVID isn't a significant threat because 99.98% of people who actually contract it, those at least we know have contracted it, because there's a bunch of people that contract it that
I'm
don't
not
test
counted
for it.
in their statistics,
Right.
and I got COVID for sure and survived just fine.
Right. So of those who are statistified about their contracting COVID, 99.99 whatever percent, they beat it. So it's not a significant threat to anyone. But that's not how the government is treating it. They are acting as though this is the end of the world, and that all COVID is dangerous, and that people are dying left and right, and so therefore they are absolutely going to say that anyone who has contracted COVID, or as you said, suspected of contracted COVID, is worth putting into these detention camps.
Yep. Democratic Assemblyman N. Nick Perry of New York's 58th District spearheaded Bill A416, which holds that the government may order the removal and or detention of such a person or a group of such persons in a medical facility or other appropriate facility or premises designated by the governor or his or her delegee. I've never heard the word delegee.
Someone to whom you would delegate, I suppose.
So essentially they're saying that the governor can decide to put you in a hospital or some other
camp,
quote, designated area.
Something they haven't come up with yet.
Well, they'll start with a ghetto.
Well,
right?
it'll
Because
be appropriate.
Well, yeah, a ghetto would totally be appropriate for the downtrodden, the outcasts.
The diseased.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. The undesirables.
Well, New York
right?
City's got plenty of like empty old tenement buildings or whatever.
Yeah, those are perfect. Right,
just where all the homeless people are shooting up drugs and stuff.
Probably rats.
Yeah, oh yeah, all that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll work just fine. And nothing like this has ever happened in human history, so nothing to be concerned about.
Except what's happening right now in Australia, because that's happening now. By the way,
in New Zealand.
Before you go on, is it happening? They've got the quarantine camps there too?
Oh, I thought that it was.
I mean, I would believe it if you told me they did.
Yeah, they're as bad as Australia, so they probably do.
I haven't seen it myself. There was some TikToker, I guess, who did a little tour of her Howard Springs resort down in Australia, which is like the main quarantine camp that they've been promoting. You've seen the pictures of like the girls in bikinis out on their front porch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like this whole propaganda campaign about the quarantine camps and how like it's not that bad. This girl walks through her...
I mean, I can show you countless of videos of Uyghur Muslims saying that being in Chinese prison, being re-educated, really isn't that bad. They're thankful for the experience.
Because the Chinese government told them to.
Yeah. Why would I believe anything different here?
There really are videos of the Uyghurs saying stuff like that? Oh, wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, I think it was actually Jeremy Kaufman, one of the board members of the Free State Project and the creator of Library, who pointed this out. He said, if Hitler had, was around today and, Hitler was doing his camps today, he would be paying TikTokers to, go through there and talk about how they weren't so bad, right? Like, that's literally what's going on.
Hey, we'll give you some extra rations tonight, but you got to make a video about how well you're treated here in this concentration camp. Hitler would absolutely be doing that.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that the Australian government is running concentration camps or anything like that, but I'm saying they're no more trustworthy than was Nazi Germany. They've all got the same goals. Every government has always had the same goals.
Well, I'm going to say that they are running concentration camps because by definition they are concentrating people in camps. Now, they may not be executing them at this point.
You can trust them, Ian. Listen to this. They're being really responsible with their power in New York.
In New York, okay.
A confirmed carrier would be released only after he or she is no longer contagious, and a suspected carrier could be set free only when the government proves that he or she is not infected with or has not been exposed to such a disease. So it's fine.
You'll be our prisoner unless you submit to a COVID test.
Yes, that's right.
And then you have to test negative.
Yeah, and we will keep you for as long as we feel like it.
And the government has to prove that you're... Hold on. The wording of this is confusing. This has to be unconstitutional. They have to prove that you're not sick.
It's an emergency. So it's okay. The Constitution doesn't apply.
Yes, but it's their job to prove that you are sick. It's not your job to prove that you aren't, right?
Well, they will force you.
Right, but that's...
Or you'll stay there forever.
That's the unconstitutional part, right?
Well, it's a state of emergency. Haven't you ever heard of the state of emergency doctrine? All the government has to do, the government gang, they just have to say, it's a state of emergency.
It's for the common good.
Then the Constitution doesn't apply anymore.
See, and the Constitution sucks anyway, but even if it did work, it was not framed with the idea that anyone in the government could just go, oh, no, this is too serious. That Constitution thing no longer applies. That was never intended to be possible within the parameters of the Constitution. Obviously, the Constitution didn't work, but that entire mindset is unconstitutional itself. But again, the Constitution sucks anyway, so screw it.
Yeah.
Well, those who may have been in contact with the alleged carriers may also be detained and released when they test negative for the malady in question, or if the suspected carrier with whom...
Hold on.
So they're not limiting this nonsense to COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is open-ended, right, as far as what this could be.
It doesn't say anything about COVID-19.
Yeah, it's going to be used first on the COVID cases. And what they're talking about with the contacts, that's exactly what they're doing right now in Australia.
Yep.
They will arrest anyone who has come into contact, allegedly, with someone who has COVID. And how do they get that information? They talk to the person. Like, who'd you talk to recently? Oh, I saw my aunt and my uncle and my boss and my, whoever.
They're coming with me.
The bartender. Then they just go and they grab all those people. And the way they have that written, that sentence that you just read, Bonnie, I don't know if you can read it one more time, but the way it's written, it says like, oh, it just sounds like you'll just get rounded up, tested, and released if you... No.
They'll be detained and released when they test negative.
Yeah, but remember, if you just came into contact with somebody, you might not test right away, right? Like, can it take a few days for you to kind of start showing the evidence on the test?
All the more reason not to talk to cops.
Yeah, exactly. More coming up here in moments. They're probably going to do what they're doing in Australia and keep you there for at least 2 weeks. More coming up. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. President Biden will address the American people on Tuesday as the Omicron variant continues to spread. But the White House says he is not planning to introduce any new restrictions. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the president will again urge Americans to get their booster shots and offer a stark warning of the risks the unvaccinated are taking.
This is not a speech about locking the country down. This is a speech outlining and being direct and clear with the American people about the benefits of being vaccinated, the steps we're going to take to increase access and to increase testing, and the risks posed to unvaccinated individuals.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson also says he's not instituting fresh restrictions as Omicron causes a record spike in cases in the UK. Speaking after a cabinet meeting, he said he can't rule out the need to take action soon.
Unfortunately, I must say to people, we will have to reserve the possibility of taking further action to protect the public.
There were nearly 92,000 new cases reported in the UK today. Moderna reported positive news about its booster shot and its efficacy against the Omicron variant. FSN's Washington correspondent Caroline Malone with that piece of the story.
A booster of the Moderna vaccine, given as a half dose of the original vaccines, increases antibody levels against Omicron by 37 times. The vaccine manufacturer confirmed the increased protection from preliminary data in a statement Monday. Moderna's chief medical officer, Paul Burton, said it should provide a good level of protection as we go into the holiday season. Health experts are warning of a rapid spread in COVID in the coming weeks, with as many as 1 million cases a day possible. Pfizer and Moderna boosters now both show some protection from getting the virus, while other vaccine boosters may provide protection against serious illness, but not from contracting the new coronavirus variant.
Britain's Queen Elizabeth has shelved plans to spend Christmas at her Sandringham estate, a precautionary approach, says Buckingham Palace, of her decision to remain at Windsor Castle rather than travel as Omicron spreads. Other headlines today: a super typhoon has killed more than 375 people in the Philippines, where the Red Cross is issuing urgent pleas for humanitarian assistance. Some coastal communities have been utterly ravaged by the storm. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, says he will pay the US government more than $11 billion in taxes this year. He made the claim on Twitter after a prominent Democrat Senator, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, accused him of freeloading off the American people. And the Attorney General of New York is accusing former President Donald Trump of repeated efforts to thwart her investigation into his business empire. He launched a lawsuit today seeking to halt her inquiries. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today in more detail at the COVID-19 lockdown that has begun in the Netherlands just in time for Christmas. Prime Minister Mark Rutte called the move unavoidable given the spread of the Omicron variant. He told a Saturday news conference that he was in a somber mood as he unveiled details of the measure. All non-essential shops are now closed until January the 14th. All schools shuttered until at least January the 9th in a bid to prevent the country's hospitals from being overwhelmed. Reporter Stephanie van der Berg is in The Hague.
We're just coming off of the fourth wave with the Delta variant, which means that Dutch hospitals have basically cancelled everything but critical care. Christmas is not quite cancelled, but it is very, very much smaller than it used to be. Now the advice is that you can have 2 people visiting your home per day. For Christmas, that will be expanded to 4 people. For most families that like to celebrate Christmas together, 4 people from outside your family bubble generally doesn't make up the entire family that would want to come for Christmas. So it's a lot of people trying to calculate who they can invite and how.
More than 85% of the adult population in the Netherlands is fully vaccinated using the old double-shot yardstick, but fewer than 9% of adults had received their booster as of Saturday. The main news again, the White House says President Biden will not unveil new COVID-19 restrictions when he addresses the American people about the Omicron variant on Tuesday. Britain's Queen Elizabeth is shelving plans to spend Christmas at her Sandringham estate due to the variant's spread. And a super typhoon has killed more than 375 people in the Philippines. The Red Cross is issuing urgent pleas for humanitarian assistance. There's more from us on Twitter @FeatureStory. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Last month, the FDA approved Hallucex, a new class of weight loss drug that helps users avoid overeating by producing nightmarish hallucinations whenever food is around. Hallucex targets the brain's cerebral cortex, stimulating the centers responsible for fear and visual processing. Test subjects reported an unprecedented decrease in appetite and showed dramatic weight loss, with only 18% reporting night terrors or subsequent cardiac arrest.
It's designed to make fatty and sugary foods even scarier. An apple just looks like it has fangs, but a milkshake will threaten you and your family by name.
Earlier incarnations of the drug proved to be too powerful and produced mental states in which test subjects no longer believed that food had ever existed. An unshakable belief that the subject had to eat all of the food on the planet in order to prevent food from rising up and destroying the human race.
No, you don't understand. I have to do this.
Or the conviction that food could be negotiated with diplomatically. With the Lab Report, I'm Aisha Patel.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join us here. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
Okay, so you can bring up anything that you want. We're talking about the worst of the worst right now as far as the United States is concerned. That's New York, and New York City specifically, where the new tyrant-elect in New York City is planning on, sounds like doing whatever it is the health department tells him to do. So get ready for a booster shot, New York City folks, and also whatever other ridiculous ordinances and mandates.
It's only a booster shot. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, don't look at the Australian government or the Israeli governments now saying four shots to be fully vaccinated. It's just a booster, or who is it that's saying 45 days for a new booster shot?
No, it was the UK cutting it from 180 to 90 days.
Was every 90 days you have to get a booster, so it's not like capped at any amount of boosters, just
forever.
Ad infinitum?
Yes, that's right. Because
that's going to make AstraZeneca so much money, man.
No, it's all about health. It's not about money. No, that's so cynical. I mean,
the officials. who are pimping these things, the Anthony Fauci's of the rest of the world, have deep, deep connections to these companies like Pfizer and AstraZeneca.
Oh, I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
Look, if Fauci doesn't own Pfizer stock, then you shouldn't take him seriously.
I don't take him seriously at all, no matter what
Right,
he
but the
says.
average person does,
Yeah.
right? So he definitely owns Pfizer stock.
For sure. All right, so we're going to get back into it, though. In fact, Bonnie's got more about this creepy law that, it's New York, so it seems like it's probably going to pass.
I think it's like a bundle of laws. We might have only one article about the one law that's going to let them put people into camps.
This is House Bill number 416.
Yes.
They're not using the word camps at this point. They're using appropriate facilities or some terminology like that.
Correct.
But ultimately, I mean, we know how all this goes down, people. We've seen it over and over throughout human history.
Well, it'll be different this time. It'll be nicer. It'll be a really nice place.
Yes, because they've never thought of putting these horrors in the context of making society better by getting rid of the undesirables. That's a totally novel idea.
It's just 2 weeks of your life. I mean, it's for the good of the people. You just have to hang out at this cool facility. You get, electricity.
We got a ColecoVision hooked up in the back, man. It's cool. It's awesome back here.
They had that, actually. Not a ColecoVision, but
What
when
is
I was
that?
in jail.
It's an older
old video game system.
Way old.
When I was in jail, I didn't actually get to see it in my cell block or whatever. I was in the lockdown, right? Like 23-hour lockdown. But in the cells next to me, there was a window so I could see what was going on in their day room. They actually had like a cart with a television on it and a Sega Genesis.
Wow.
Like a mini Sega Genesis on there. So while you were out in the
How
day
do you
room,
get that approved,
you
man?
could play video games in jail. So hey, good times.
There are worse things, right?
Yeah.
I would rather not be playing Sega Genesis in jail, but if you're going to be in jail, it's not a terrible thing to have access to a Genesis that you can play every once in a while.
Yeah, but it's still jail, and you don't get to choose to leave. And in Australia, for instance, there were some teenagers that actually scaled the fence at the Howard Springs facility. And
I hate that they named it because that suggests that this thing is permanent.
Oh yeah, no, it was actually not built by the government. It was built by some corporation. They had miners or something that were camped out there, and so the government, as I understand it, is either leasing or has purchased that facility from that corporation. So it wasn't
sort of like they used old Walmarts for the FEMA camps here in the United States.
Yeah, except those would be much worse because this was actually private companies' facilities, so it wasn't so bad, right? Like they're kind of manufactured housing looking, kind of trailer looking facades on the housing that
somewhere
they had.
like the FEMA camps they used in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, when here's a trailer, there's no electricity, there's no running water.
No, I think those were like leaching chemicals into the people that were staying in them, and they were toxic or something like that. No, these were actually built to some standard of corporate. So
it wasn't initially designed to be a government local
That's what
facility.
I'm trying to say here.
But whenever they need more, I'm sure they're going to be leaking chemicals on people.
Oh yeah, they're building government ones now. So they didn't have the government ones when this whole thing started.
We didn't know that the chemicals in the shower were going to kill 6 billion people. We just had no idea. That totally caught us off guard.
Let's go to Sarah. She's on the line in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes. I want to talk about Noriega in Nicaragua. I don't know much about him, but as long as I'm demonizing him, he must be a communist revolutionary that has turned president of that country. I mean, do you think that my hunch is right?
Okay, so I had to go look this up. I had heard...
You don't know anything about this guy except his name, presumably, and you're like, my gut tells me he's a communist dictator. Is that correct, Sarah?
Well, I mean, communist revolutionary. To me, that's not a dictator. To me, he's a hero because
Hold on. Okay, so Sarah, why did you even bring this guy up? Number one, I mean, he's been dead for several years now. He died in 2017, apparently.
Oh, he has passed away. I think they were talking about Nicaragua in a little while. I mean, a while ago. Who's the president now? I mean,
I have no idea.
Is she talking about Chile? Because there's this guy that apparently took over Chile.
No, I don't know if he had any involvement in Chile.
Well,
but
whoever their president is now in Nicaragua, my gut tells me he's probably a communist revolutionary.
He's probably a bad guy. But Sarah, we know from your previous calls that you are a communist. You're a self-professed communist. And I would think that you would know, if you were going to call in about this guy, that you would at least know that he apparently was just an authoritarian dictator, and he was, according to a different story at wessexscene.co.uk, they describe him as an anti-communist ally of the United States who lost favor, ultimately being incarcerated later in the United States, because, you know, that's how the U.S. government is. They always turn against their tools.
Well, she didn't know, Ian. She was going off of her gut feeling.
Yeah, so apparently Noriega was, according to the story here, Wikipedia, he was an authoritarian ruler of Panama, who amassed a personal fortune through drug trafficking, had long-standing ties to the U.S. intelligence agencies. Before the U.S. invasion of Panama removed him from power, they then took him to trial in Miami, sentenced to 40 years in prison. He served 17 years after a reduction in his sentence for good behavior, and then they turned him over to the French, so he didn't even get out. Like, they literally, on the day he got out of U.S. prison, they extradited him to France, where he then served even more time.
Sir, I want to come back to the question of why did you call in and ask about this guy?
Well, they're talking about him on the news of some kind. I don't know. I just always when they demonize somebody, they're usually a communist hero that turned president. I mean, that's what I'm assuming, but I never knew the detail of the story that you're talking about. But the whole thing is that, as we know, the media twists everything around. When somebody says they're bad, they're usually the good guy. And so they.
Well, it is definitely true that you shouldn't believe the media whenever they tell you something. So that's probably a good general thing to keep in mind. But that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody that the media doesn't like is good. There's a possibility that the media doesn't like that person, and they're also a bad person. It's just that they go against whatever, you know, the politicians of the moment in the United States are wanting, and so therefore the media would be against that person. But they could also be their own little tyrant in whatever country that they're ruling over. So, for instance, this guy
the media tells us that the Egyptian military's general he's a fine, upstanding guy. This wasn't a coup. But yet the Egyptian government did, in fact, execute a coup, take over their entire country, and now it's a military dictatorship.
The military did, yeah.
And the U.S. media is like, no, that's not that. He's a great guy. Everything's fine.
Yeah, so you definitely, I mean, that much is true. You should not trust what the media says. Sarah, thank you for the call tonight here. But I got to say, you know, every time she calls in, it's like, girl, get down to the damn library.
It's free. You should love it.
And use the computers and try to research something once.
She said, she wasn't on the show when Sarah explained why she doesn't use the library computers. It's because they're dirty.
Oh, see, I would have figured it was because they were sent here by the devil. That would have been that's what my gut feeling would have told me.
I don't think she's religious. I mean, she's a communist.
She worships the state then.
Yeah. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Speaking of states, the New York State's one of the worst, and we'll tell you more about what they've got planned for COVID quarantine camps coming up. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, open phones. You join us, bring up whatever's on your mind here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And with you tonight, it is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
Bonnie was sharing with us a creepy potential future for the state of New York. We told you... You know, and I don't like rubbing this in. It doesn't make me feel good to say this because it's awful what's happening to the people there.
We should be getting shunned right now with people playing clips from, us warning people about this 18 months ago to say, look, we told you were overreacting. It's not that serious. They're not building concentration camps. Now, calm down. The government's not this big, evil, monstrous thing that's trying to do these things. But no, we were right.
And we told you to get out while you still can. And at this moment, you still can.
And see, the other night, you weren't on, Aria. We were on with Chris. But Ian and Chris and David Olson from New Mexico were all arguing with me that the people who got kicked out of a Panera Bread in New York City are the same thing as...
You're talking about Cheesecake Factory.
Cheesecake Factory in New York City for not being vaccinated, and they refused to leave. They wanted to force the servers to serve them. They all said that was the same exact thing as the sit-ins of the early 60s that black people were doing at like Woolworths or whatever in Birmingham.
No, we talked about that to an extent, and we determined, or at least I determined, that a key difference there was the Woolworths protests were against store policy because it wasn't a Jim Crow law. Those had been repealed the decade prior to that. And these are protests against a city mandate. So that's a key difference between them. But there are a lot of similarities.
But
I will give that.
This is my argument. The people in New York City right now who they will ever stand up for, their line in the sand was going to Cheesecake Factory. They can still leave, and there's not a culture of the whole United States that is, there are places in the United States where you can eat at Cheesecake Factory or whatever without being vaccinated, and I just think it's a totally different thing. Everybody who's still in New York City and acting like this is just suddenly happening to them.
Instead of the sit-ins that you were talking about, why wouldn't those people just leave?
Well, it's like
why
a
would
culture.
they come to a state?
That's what she's saying, right? Just leave.
Well,
are you saying the people who did the sit-ins should have left?
No, I'm saying that back then they could have went to the north, and it would have still been a culture of people who needed their minds changed about black people being not second-class citizens. This is something totally different because there are places in the United States that still will let you eat at a Cheesecake Factory.
I see what you're saying
without being vaccinated, and you're just being lazy.
But there would have still been places back then that would have let them eat in their restaurants without being treated like second-class citizens. Finding one restaurant that they can go to somewhere in the United States doesn't mean it's not a problem that they can be addressed.
There are whole cities where you can do whatever you want unvaccinated in the United States. It's a majority.
Right, but she's talking about back then.
Back then, there's not a majority.
There were certainly entire cities back then where a black person would have been treated as an equal citizen.
That's what I was trying to tell Bonnie.
Probably New York City or San Francisco or something.
Even Captain said that in the 70s there was intense racism where he lived in Wisconsin. It's a whole culture that needed to be changed.
He lived out in the boonies or whatever in Wisconsin. I mean, there's always going to be rednecks, everywhere you go in the United States. Country music's the #1 music format out there, and I'm not saying everyone that listens to country is a racist. Right? I'm not saying that. I'm just giving an example here of what's common out there. But I got to agree with Arya on this. I mean, there's a reason why escaped slaves were funneled to the north, because they were generally better accepted up there. That's not to say they wouldn't encounter racism. They still might encounter it in certain places today.
Well, right now there's not even a whole state where you can't go out to eat unless you're vaccinated.
That's true. There's not yet. But there will be. New York, I suspect, or California will start that.
You can just drive 30 minutes outside of a city and probably live in New York City, you can go to Long Island and eat at a place where you don't have to show vaccination. I just think that these people are just lazy, fat people who didn't care the last 2 years about any of these mandates that were happening. And
we don't know if they're fat. We didn't see video footage of the people at the Cheesecake Factory.
People who are this obese and docile this docile and controllable is usually also obese.
Well, he was attempting to resist, right? Isn't that what caused him to be
the Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah.
Well, all the last 2 years, he's just lived in New York City thinking this is okay, and this is his line in the sand.
Well, for all we know, he was fighting it 2 years ago as well.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know who these people are.
Activism, it only works if you have a large number of people, and that's why these sit-ins were effective, because there were a large number of black people in the South who would take part in these sit-ins.
Yeah, literally hundreds. It grew very quickly to a large number. It started with 4 and then went quite fast from there.
The difference with these citizens in New York City is that they don't have those numbers, and that's why they should get to New Hampshire, where we do have those numbers.
Well, we probably don't want these guys, honestly, because
they should go to Texas, I think.
Yeah, they probably better fit somewhere else, because these are city dweller types who, they're of the mindset that, well, we deserve to be served, and you owe us because we're members of the public, and you have to serve us. So they have this
we don't want those.
Yeah, they had this sort of entitlement mentality that they, these are just like undesirable people in general.
They're Karens.
And see, that's a huge difference with the black people in the South. They wanted Alabamans to realize that just because they're black, they weren't a second-class citizen. I just don't think it's the same thing.
There's not that. No, as far as the sit-ins were concerned, they were also demanding to be served. They didn't say, oh, well, we're welcome at this, other shop down the street, so we're going to bring our business there. They said, Woolworths has a discriminatory policy. We are going to make political hay out of that. And they did. And they successfully Woolworths got them to reverse their policy. So it was actually a very successful, sort of a protest that, again, was not regarding any sort of law, from what I understand. So it was kind of that similar, we're here, we're members of the public, you should serve us. So
yeah, for being born black. I just think it's a lot different.
It's still wrong, though. I mean, if you're a business owner, no matter how disgusting I think it is, you have the right to say, no, we're not going to serve trans people. We're not going to serve gay people. We're not going to serve black people. They have that right. It's morally reprehensible and it's disgusting, but it's their right. I will take my business elsewhere that isn't owned by one of these idiots.
Right. That's what I would do too. And I think that's what you were suggesting, Bonnie, is that, they should just take their business elsewhere. And in the case of New York, that they should leave New York City and take their business elsewhere in that way. So I don't disagree with the conclusion is vote with your feet. But at the same time, what they were doing is tantamount to what was going on.
I'm just saying last year, I agreed that you should vote with your feet and that you should take your business elsewhere and all that stuff, except for the fact that like all of Alabama was like that. It's not like that any state in the United States right now for vaccinated people.
First of all, the sit-ins we were talking about was North Carolina. It wasn't Alabama. Now, they might have spread to Alabama, but the ones we were talking about specifically were North Carolina, the lunch counter. And so since the Jim Crow laws were repealed, that would suggest that there were. Now, I can't say for sure. I wasn't alive and I wasn't living there at the time, but the suggestion is that some businesses would be integrated on their own choice. I don't think all of the businesses in Greensboro, North Carolina were segregated.
No, it's bad business.
That's why they picked on Woolworths, because they were. But if you were around back then and you want to weigh in on that, because that is a question, what percentage of the businesses in Greensboro were segregated by choice? And was it 100%? Because I doubt it.
Was it as easy as driving or getting on a taxi and going 20 miles east to Long Island like these people at Cheesecake Factory could have done?
603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Omicron is now the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the U.S., accounting for nearly 3/4 of all cases, according to the U.S. government's Centers for Disease Control. It's a stunning turnaround that has taken place in less than a week. Our Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The CDC says that 73% of COVID-19 infections in the last week were caused by Omicron in America. 7 days ago, that number was just 4%, with Delta still dominant. The news came on the eve of President Biden's address to the nation. No new restrictions are to be announced, says the White House. Just a fresh reminder of the importance of boosters and a stark warning to the unvaccinated about the risks the president will say they're running.
Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
This is not a speech about locking the country down. This is a speech outlining and being direct and clear with the American people about the benefits of being vaccinated, the steps we're going to take to increase access and to increase testing, and the risks posed to unvaccinated individuals.
U.S. markets fell Monday as fears grew over Omicron's potential economic impact. Economic growth for the U.S. has also been revised down after President Biden's Build Back Better bill appeared to be scuppered in Congress. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from the New York Stock Exchange.
All the major indices ended the day down, with the Dow tumbling 430 points, or 1.2%. The S&P and Nasdaq were also both down just over 1%. Fears are growing over the impact of the Omicron variant on the economy, after New York warned of a surge in new cases over the coming weeks. A mask mandate has been reintroduced onto the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Companies linked to the recovery from the pandemic suffered most, with travel firms like Southwest Airlines losing more than 1% in share price. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs cut its US GDP growth forecast for the first quarter of 2022 from 3% to 2%, after Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia signaled he won't back Biden's $1.75 billion Build Back Better spending bill, appearing to leave little possibility for the plan to be passed by Congress.
The Biden administration is boosting fuel economy standards to fight climate change. New rules reverse a Trump-era rollback that had loosened the standards. FSN's Rachel Silverman has details.
The new rules announced by the Environmental Protection Agency would raise mileage standards for new cars and light trucks starting in the 2023 model year. The target industry-wide would be 40 miles per gallon by 2026. That's 25% higher than a rule finalized by the Trump administration last year and 5% higher than a Biden administration proposal in August. The EPA says the new standards would slow climate change, improve public health, and lower costs for drivers.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. You ready to learn about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash? Then you can click Get Started at the top of the page over at Bitcoin.com. You'll find useful information in video format. If you're short on time, just watch the first one. It'll take you all of 3 whole minutes of your life. And you will get some of the basic concepts down because there is a little bit of a learning curve. There are some new ideas that you do have to you should understand when it comes to cryptocurrency. You need to know why this stuff is taking off and why it's so special. So head over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started. If you're not new to crypto and you want to get the latest news headlines, they've got those for you there as well on their news site, and that is news.bitcoin.com. So let's go back, Bonnie, to the story that you were sharing with us. It's been a couple segments since we were into it, but it's about this bill in New York State. And I think we all agree that people who don't like to be told what to do as far as vaccine passports and things like that, you have no future in New York City.
Yep.
And you have no future in New York State. If you want to, if they're like a conservative type of person, get on down to Texas or Florida. You'll love it. It's warm, and there's a bunch of like police state loving conservatives there.
There's huge cities there too.
Yeah, there's
So
plenty.
you can't say, "Oh, I can't leave New York City."
They can't go to Florida though. Cubans. And they're racist generally.
Oh,
you're saying the Cubans are racist, or
No.
the people from New York City?
The ones who we're describing who should go to the conservative types.
Oh yeah. Well, anyway, the point being, Florida and Texas tend to be pretty conservative kind of places. If, however, you are a liberty-minded person, if you are someone who understands the non-aggression principle, if you're a libertarian or a voluntarist or a liberty-loving anarchist, then there's no other place for you to go besides New Hampshire. That's where the largest community exists of freedom lovers and activists who actually care about freedom. So that's your choice. Or just stay in the city and then be subject to total tyranny. Now, also New York State, so just going to Long Island isn't going to solve the problem.
yeah. New York State's deciding to do this in the whole state now.
Right, because
deciding on whether or not to do it.
Yeah, so you've got a story about a piece of legislation that's currently in front of apparently the New York Senate. I had said it was a House bill. It's apparently a Senate bill that they're going to be looking at sometime in the new year. I'm not sure when, but wait a minute. 2021 through 2022.
It's going to be
It says this was
decided
filed
on
on the 21st.
It's going to be decided July 5th. January 5th, sorry.
That's this coming January 5th. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
This is from Reason.com, your story?
Yes,
All right.
and it's Bill A416.
So just interestingly, this was actually filed a year ago. This bill was filed January 6, 2021.
Okay,
So
that's weird.
they've been working, this thing's been working its way through the system apparently. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, it makes it to where anyone, the governor or a delegee of the governor, decides is a public health risk or may have come in contact with somebody else who's a public health risk, it makes it to where they can be detained by the government until the government proves that they're not, they're not going to spread that disease. The article goes on to say, what could go wrong? The bill's language is noticeably vague in defining the parameters around disease type, leaving the government wide latitude in conducting its risk analysis. Should it pass, Governor Andrew Cuomo, but it's actually lady now.
When was this written?
On the 5th of this month. Yeah, the 5th of this month.
Okay. That's weird.
From last year or this year, though?
Oh, wait. This is the
weird.
5th of January. I read it wrong. What the heck? Okay, yeah, this was January 2021.
Okay, so we'll have to figure out what's going on with this thing right now. Anyway, go ahead with what else you wanted to say about this.
I don't know. This might be the wrong bill that I wanted to talk about, and I got the wrong article. But anyways.
Well, this is the same bill that Nikki, who's one of our co-hosts, shared in a group chat with the host today. But it's possible that, it's not hard to notice the dates wrong on a thing, or that, you don't notice that it was from
So it's not going to be voted on soon?
I don't know. Apparently this was referred to a health committee in the last year, according to the Senate website. So I guess it's maybe it's stuck there. Not clear. Apparently there are also similar versions of this that were introduced in previous legislative sessions, according to this story.
Which is at least hopeful, because if they were different versions were introduced before, they were shot down.
Perhaps.
Well, I mean, they had to have been. Otherwise, they would have introduced a new one. But they're just like they did with SOPA and PIPA, the Internet Protection and Privacy Laws.
They kept on hammering it.
It's going to fail. They're going to rewrite it slightly, and they're going to try again, and they're going to rewrite it slightly and try again, and then they're just going to slip it into a $1.5 trillion infrastructure package, and people aren't going to notice. And if anyone does notice, they'll just go, oh, that's fine. That's just totally normal. That's how the U.S. government works. Of course we're sending $30 billion to Pakistan for gender studies programs in this infrastructure bill. Why wouldn't we? It's totally logical.
There was a news story, quote-unquote news story, produced about this bill recently as of, I guess, today. So Newsweek headline, Marjorie Taylor Greene falsely claims New York passed bill to forcibly vaccinate people. And according to, this is, I guess, some other, I don't know if she's like a U.S. rep or something. I've seen her name before. I think
I've heard Marjorie Greene's name before.
Some sort of person in D.C. She spoke at something called America Fest over the weekend and told attendees that the New York House passed a bill that allows for unvaccinated people deemed a danger to society to be detained. And so when asked for comment about Greene's claim that they had passed it, the spokesperson for Greene linked a National Pulse story about the bill.
It has been a bill that's been considered for a while, because January 3rd, 2021, Politico came out with this article about it that said, long dormant assembly bill becomes subject of conspiracy theories.
Yeah. So
well, there's no conspiracy here.
Yeah.
The legislature introduced a bill that would allow them to use public health as an excuse to arrest people and detain them.
And according to this story, the bill is currently in committee. So it has not been voted on by the state Senate at this point. Now, when it will come out of committee, I don't know how the New York system works.
Well, first they have to kick it down to the subcommittee who is going to send it down to the subcommittee, and eventually someone will chop off a chicken's head, and depending on which part of the floor it lands on, they'll decide whether or not to pass the stupid thing.
I don't know how the New York system works, but if it's anything like the New Hampshire one, which I'm not suggesting that it is, but if it's anything like it, committees hear bills, they come back with a recommendation for the full Senate in this particular case, and then the full Senate votes yay or nay or whatever on whether or not this bill should move to the House. So in theory, that can happen at any time. I don't know when, if, again, I don't know if it's, I presume New York meets all the time, unlike New Hampshire, which is like a part-time legislature. So if it's like New Hampshire, then they meet in the wintertime, which means they're going to be meeting very, very soon, and they may take this bill off the table. They may actually begin serious discussion about it, but all of that right now is pure speculation on my part. So if you're in New York and you know how this stuff works there, could this just be taken off the table this week and voted on, or is it going to be a few months? We have no idea.
I mean, that's another thing, right? Can't the committee just say, you know what, this bill has no momentum. We're not even going to consider it. We're just going to shelve it for now, and it just hangs back there indefinitely?
It could, yeah.
This article talks about how it was actually written for Ebola, and it got brought up again back in January 2021 for the passage, or because they wanted to pass it for COVID laws.
Right.
Is Ebola contagious?
Oh, Ebola is crazy contagious.
And it will kill you, likely.
It's like way worse than COVID. If this was an Ebola pandemic, then way more people would die.
So was there anything else that you wanted to share from the story, Bonnie, that people should know about?
Actually, I don't mind sharing the whole thing if you want to go over it. It's still a bill that could happen in New York City.
Yeah, like I said, if there's something else in there that you thought was worth sharing, go right ahead.
It says the two-term Democrat, Cuomo, has navigated the COVID-19 pandemic with an array of inflexible regulations, from what food bars can serve if they'd like to stay open to how hospitals are allowed to vaccinate New Yorkers.
Now, obviously, the person at that time didn't know Cuomo would be gone by the end of the year. He is gone, but that doesn't mean anything has changed.
No, it's just a different figurehead now.
Right. The current governor, by the way, who was his lieutenant governor, Kathy Hochul, has now announced that she's planning to introduce legislation that will include a booster shot when they use the term fully vaccinated. So that's another thing that's coming soon to New York.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up absolutely anything. We've been telling you about how Intercoin can help any business or organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. And now Intercoin has launched its investor token worldwide. And for the first time, it's available on an exchange. You can go and get some. It's ITR over at xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com. All you need is an email address to sign up for X Markets, so you can keep your privacy intact. You can then deposit dozens of different cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, trade them for Tether, and then use Tether to buy the ITR, which is the Intercoin Investor Token. You can learn more about the Intercoin vision at intercoin.org and buy or sell ITR over on xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com. You just might be advancing the cause of liberty around the world. So we just discovered that this bill in New York Senate is still sitting there. It has not moved in any meaningful sense. So whether that's a good thing...
Which is another nice thing about New Hampshire is that it can't just sit there forever in a committee.
No, they can retain things.
Oh, they can?
Yeah, they can table a thing and not do a thing about it if they want to.
Oh.
So that is a possibility when it comes to New Hampshire's legislation as far as seceding from the United States. If they want to be nasty, they could just,
Yeah, but it's going to be hard to do that when we have the auditorium packed with 200 and something anarchists who are like, "Hey, yeah, no, let's do this."
Yeah, I hope you're right, and I hope that we can turn those kind of numbers out for this thing. But you're correct. If there's enough political pressure on these guys, they're going to have to move it forward. But yes, they could, if they wanted to, vote to table a bill, and then in theory, it does have to come off the table, I think, at some point. But it might be like next year, so they might be able to kick the can down the road for an extra year or something like that. And this gets into the the ins and outs of exactly how the political system works, and I'm not the right person to answer all the details.
That's because we don't care really how it works. I mean, it's just tedious and exhausting, and it's bureaucracies doing what bureaucracies do best, which is red tape and dotted I's and crossed T's.
Right. So the mainstream media is, when they're talking about this bill, which I'm sure they don't talk about it very often,
they're trying to downplay
dismissing it.
Yeah, and make it seem like, oh, it's just because it didn't get, completely voted out of the system and it's still in a committee doesn't mean that it's a risk to you. It is totally a risk to the people that live in New York until they vote to get rid of it. But they're not going to vote to get rid of it.
You said it initially was written for an Ebola outbreak. What happened to it back when it was an Ebola measure?
It did not pass.
Well, Perry, who apparently wrote the bill, said Perry defended his bill on Twitter. "I'm an American who understands our Constitution is sacred and provides us with the right to agree or disagree and hold different positions on issues that may relate to our civil and constitutional rights. The legislation was originally introduced during the 2015-2016 session in response to the Ebola virus. Quote, this bill hasn't been actively pushed for passage because the Ebola threat was ended thanks to a vaccine," Perry continued. However, many learned scientists believe that the likelihood of such a deadly pandemic is still real, and somewhere in the future there may be the need for people to be protected from a person or persons carrying a very deadly and transmittable virus.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be fear-mongering to promote this thing, and certainly it has, I would say, a greater chance now of passing than it ever has.
I tend to agree just because the fear-mongering around COVID-19 is so intense. I mean, these people believe that crap, and the people who spend all of their time watching television and Fox News and CNN and just the commercials on television that are filled with COVID-19 fear, they're going to buy this crap. However, in my experiences with normal non-libertarian people throughout the last 6 months or so, they've tuned COVID-19 out entirely. It's not that they're no longer afraid of it or anything like that. It's no longer a thing they even recognize as being a threat. They got bombarded with it for 18 months, and after 18 months of that, it's like the Charlie Brown teacher talking to them whenever COVID-19 is mentioned. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that that's true in maybe Keene, New Hampshire, but it's certainly not that way in New York City, where there's
and I mean, then you have plenty of people who are like getting off on the fear, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes them feel special, like they're doing a great thing for their fellow human beings by getting the vaccination for the 4th time or 5th time.
Now, there's actually something interesting here. I'm on the New York Senate nysenate.gov site with this bill pulled up. And I find it actually kind of surprising that they actually have open commenting on this page. So I think they've got like the Discuss plugin.
They're not obligated to read the comments. So.
No, but it is interesting. Like, I don't think New Hampshire does that, where just anybody can go and comment on a page. I think they're using the Discuss comment plugin here. Yeah, it looks like it. 17,000.
God, I didn't know that still existed.
So they've got a rating actually on this, which is interesting. So there's like a little smiley face, like 2 hearts with the eyes, and then just a normal smiley, and then like an angry looking smiley. So they've got like 5 different smiley faces here, and you can rate what you think about this thing. Of 103 ratings, it's currently ranked at a 1.1. I guess so there's like a star rating, and then there's a smiley face rating. Anyway, ranked as 1 star out of 5 stars.
It's almost like kindergarten. You don't get a smiley face today, you get a star.
And
do better.
Interestingly, there's been a lot of discussion in the comments in the last 2 days. So, when you look here, you can see when people's comments were posted. So
someone probably shared it on Facebook without checking the date, and all of their friends saw it and shared it without checking the date.
Right. This happens all the time. Yeah, this is getting passed around quite a bit, and you saw it on what, Instagram or something?
Yeah. Well, a person that I know that lives in New York City posted a meme that says A416 wants you to put you in camps.
And that is what it wants.
Like today.
According to, if you keep going down here, there's a jump. So like it's people within the last 48 hours, there's a ton of comments, and then after you pass that level, it jumps down to like 7 or 8 months ago. So there was a real lull for several months, and now this thing's people are once again paying attention, and I hope that they do pay attention. Although I have no expectation that the Senate of New York is going to continue to reject this legislation.
Guys, we only got a star on this one. We didn't get the smiley face. We got to kill the whole bill.
Trash it.
We got. That would be a better way of doing government, actually, than what they're currently doing, if they actually cared about what their article got rated.
I mean, there was a tweet on December 19th, 2021. Breaking report, New York legislation set to vote on January 5th, 2022 provides for indefinite detention of unvaccinated. So I do think that they're voting on A14 or 416. This is on Twitter. December 19th. So I'm just saying.
Is there a source to it, or is it just some guy who also did not check the year?
There's probably somebody that didn't look at the date.
Yeah.
It's probably one of many people who saw January 5th, and what they just didn't see, it was January 5th.
I mean, God knows I've done it plenty of times. Bring in an article and they go, oh, crap, this was written a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I've done it a myriad of times myself. I mean...
if something's, blowing up on the internet, it's natural human nature to click and be like, oh, my God, this is terrible.
But the committee is assembling on January 5th, 2022. So are we sure that it's not getting voted on that day? That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like impossible to Google this.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is it's in the committee. And if you're, maybe you're right. Maybe this will be taken off the table. I guess we can say this. It's possible that the next time the committee meets, this could be voted on.
I will also say that if the New York State government wanted to implement tyranny and they wanted to do it without people being able to pay attention to it, the best way to do it would be to make it impossible to find information about it by Googling it. Because instead you end up with this year-old article and not the thing that's actually upcoming.
That happens to be written on the same date.
Here's what I would say. is mark your calendar if you're interested in following up on this for January 6th, and then check this New York Senate website and see if there's any kind of status. Like, see if the status, because it tells you the current status here in Assembly Committee.
I would give it a week or so at least. I can't imagine the New York Senate
the next day. Yeah, it's probably true. So yeah, give it another week. Check in with it.
It is a bureaucracy after all.
Yeah, and see what's going on. So thanks for sharing that tonight here, Bonnie. The number is 603-283-6160. It is something that people need to be aware of. And I will say
they had the idea.
Yeah, but it's not an original idea either. I mean, as you said, it's been going on for years now that they've been trying to pass this thing. But they already have in the state laws, state statutes, in I think probably all the states, it wouldn't surprise me, they already have involuntary commitment statutes. Okay, so it's not like they can't just take people off the streets using quote-unquote public health as their excuse. This, I think, just expands that concept into actual facilities in which multiple people that have a thing could be kept. But there's already like state of emergency level stuff where they can force you into healthcare facilities if that's what they want to do. They already can do that.
Involuntary mental health confinement, man, it's such a difficult issue. Because it is. There are some people who are insane, and
having dealt with an insane person and actually going through that myself once, being insane, it sucks.
Yeah. One of the places where the NAP just doesn't give you any answers.
No, it doesn't. You cannot use the non-aggression principle when it comes to dealing with an insane person. You just have to try to be as compassionate as you can and disarm the person.
Compassion is more important than the nap, certainly.
Yeah.
You're only temporarily insane. You made it sound like you're always insane.
No, I was for a time. It was more than a decade ago. And then I had to deal with somebody who was just as bad years later. More coming up. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Omicron is now the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the U.S., accounting for nearly 3/4 of all cases, according to the U.S. government's Centers for Disease Control. It's a stunning turnaround that has taken place in less than a week. Our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks, reports.
The CDC says that 73% of COVID-19 infections in the last week were caused by Omicron in America. 7 days ago, that number was just 4%, with Delta still dominant. The news came on the eve of President Biden's address to the nation. No new restrictions are to be announced, says the White House. Just a fresh reminder of the importance of boosters and a stark warning to the unvaccinated about the risks the president will say they're running.
Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
This is not a speech about locking the country down. This is a speech outlining and being direct and clear with the American people about the benefits of being vaccinated, the steps we're going to take to increase access and to increase testing, and the risks posed to unvaccinated individuals.
U.S. markets fell Monday as fears grew over Omicron's potential economic impact. Economic growth for the U.S. has also been revised down after President Biden's Build Back Better bill appeared to be scuppered in Congress. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from the New York Stock Exchange.
All the major indices ended the day down, with the Dow tumbling 430 points or 1.2%. The S&P and Nasdaq were also both down just over 1%. Fears are growing over the impact of the Omicron variant on the economy after New York warned of a surge in new cases over the coming weeks. A mask mandate has been reintroduced onto the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Companies linked to the recovery from the pandemic suffered most, with travel firms like Southwest Airlines losing more than 1% in share price. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs cut its US GDP growth forecast for the first quarter of 2022 from 3% to 2% after Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia signaled he won't back Biden's $1.75 billion Build Back Better spending bill, appearing to leave little possibility for the plan to be passed by Congress.
The Biden administration is boosting fuel economy standards to fight climate change. New rules reverse a Trump-era rollback that had loosened the standards. FSN's Rachel Silverman has details.
The new rules announced by the Environmental Protection Agency would raise mileage standards for new cars and light trucks starting in the 2023 model year. The target industry-wide would be 40 miles per gallon by 2026. That's 25% higher than a rule finalized by the Trump administration last year and 5% higher than a Biden administration proposal in August. The EPA says the new standards would slow climate change, improve public health, and lower costs for drivers.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today in more detail at the COVID-19 lockdown that has begun in the Netherlands just in time for Christmas. Prime Minister Mark Rutte called the move unavoidable given the spread of the Omicron variant. He told a Saturday news conference that he was in a somber mood as he unveiled details of the measure. All non-essential shops are now closed until January the 14th. All schools shuttered until at least January the 9th in a bid to prevent the country's hospitals from being overwhelmed. Reporter Stephanie van der Berg is in The Hague.
We're just coming off of the fourth wave with the Delta variant, which means that Dutch hospitals have basically cancelled everything but critical care. Christmas is not quite cancelled, but it is very, very much smaller than it used to be. Now the advice is that you can have 2 people visiting your home per day. For Christmas, that will be expanded to 4 people. For most families that like to celebrate Christmas together, 4 people from outside your family bubble generally doesn't make up the entire family that would want to come for Christmas. So it's a lot of people trying to calculate who they can invite and how.
More than 85% of the adult population in the Netherlands is fully vaccinated using the old double-shot yardstick, but fewer than 9% of adults had received their booster as of Saturday. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Omicron is now the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the U.S., accounting for 3/4 of new cases, a stunning turnaround that has taken place in less than a week. U.S. markets fall as fears grow over Omicron's potential economic impact. And the Biden administration boosts fuel economy standards to fight climate change, reversing a Trump-era rollback that had loosened standards. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Shortly after accidentally clicking like on nearly 400 of his ex-girlfriend's Facebook photos earlier today, panicked area man Adam Nuensing spoke to Onion reporters about his mistake.
Damn it, I was just looking at one of Rebecca's Instagram photos that showed up on my newsfeed, and the next thing I know, I just liked every single photo that she posted over the last 4 years. I didn't mean to, but it just kind of happened.
The 28-year-old told reporters that he had browsed through 14 of his ex-girlfriend's photo albums while inadvertently clicking like on each and every picture, including dozens from her office picnic last fall, her trip to New York in 2010, and a photo of her and her first boyfriend from 2006.
I thought if I went back and clicked unlike on all those pictures that maybe she wouldn't get any notifications, But then I saw some other albums, and I ended up liking 80 more photos and shared them on my wall. Shit.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining me tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
Of course, you can take control of the airwaves and bring up whatever's on your mind on the way here. We're still focused a little bit on how bad things are in New York and how much worse they could get, but they're already really bad. So if you actually care about freedom and you're still living in New York, or worse, New York City, you really need to ask yourself why. And you really should be honest with
because they're going to get Larry Sharp as their governor, and everything's going to be different.
Yeah, does anyone really believe that?
They clearly do.
Does Larry Sharp believe that? Does he actually think he has a chance to win?
He at least did at one point.
Well, he's running again, so I don't know what that means. But
it means libertarians have more money than common sense.
They don't seem to have that much money.
They don't have much for common sense either. But I mean, they have enough money they funded his campaign a few years ago. So I mean, that money would have been put to better use here in New Hampshire, doing almost literally anything that wasn't giving Larry Sharp money to run for governor of New York. But whatever makes you happy, I guess.
I don't know how much they spent on that guy, but it was what, millions?
It was a lot of money for a governor's
Plus,
race.
I think they got some money from the National Libertarian Party for that as well.
I mean, people had high hopes for it. They're like, this is it. We're going to get this one. And then it was like, what? The same as ever?
Why
3%?
would they believe that?
Because they're crazy. They're libertarians. They're already half detached from reality from the beginning.
Yeah, that is part of the problem with trying to get the libertarians to actually wake up and realize they are banging their head up against a brick wall in California or New York or Illinois or wherever it is they happen to be.
Yeah, that give that you're feeling when you bang your head against that brick wall, that's your skull, not the brick.
Yeah, and getting them to wake up and try to do something different, try a new approach, and this isn't like some sort of speculative approach that we're just wondering if it's going to work. No, the Free State Project and the migration of freedom lovers to New Hampshire it's proven. It's a proof of concept. It's happening, and we've actually elected freedom-loving people here who are actual, self-described anarchists. People who are real libertarians have actually gotten into the state house in fairly large number.
Oh, but it doesn't count because they didn't have that L next to their name.
If that's the kind of person we're dealing with, they really shouldn't come here. The people that are coming here should understand that we need to try from every different aspect to change things, and that's why it's working here. Because some of the freedom lovers who are willing to change their party to the Republicans or the Democrats and willing to try to run for office that way, and actually won. So if you're willing to win, if you want to win, then why don't you just come where people are already winning? Why not come where the largest concentration of freedom-loving people already is? Or you can just keep failing where you are. It's up to you. Meanwhile, they're going to create an insane police state tyranny, medical authoritarian hellscape all around you. That's not going away. Caller, somebody who wants to be referred to as Caller is on the line here from Pennsylvania. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, hey, thanks for that.
Yes,
that was actually a perfect introduction because I wanted to talk about Mark Edge. And the last couple of times that he called in, he was bashing the Free State Project and the idea of moving to New Hampshire, getting out of some of these places that are full of tyranny. I just recently moved from New York. I'm not in a better place now completely, but it is, looking at New York City right now, it is better. Being where I am now, but of course New Hampshire I think would be the best overall. Yeah. But Mark Edge, he very much was just dishing on the Free State Project, saying that there were only very certain people that New Hampshire could actually work for. And I think mainly he doesn't like the cold. But what I really wanted to bring up was I got a question. Why can't you, Ian, talk to Mark Edge?
Oh, I'm prohibited from doing so by the federal government bail conditions. There's a list of people I'm not allowed to talk to, including Mark, including Melanie, one of our other previous co-hosts, Daryl Perry.
I was initially on that list.
They claimed that the people who you guys can't talk to are potential witnesses or potentially victims.
Correct. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. But I do agree with you. Mark has I've been calling him One Note Mark recently whenever I hear his calls to the show, because it's literally all he calls about is trash talking the migration to New Hampshire, and it's sad.
He doesn't view it as trash talking, but I think I sort of understand where he's coming from. He's worried about freedom for himself right now. He doesn't want to fight for it. He just wants to pay some money and make it go away.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I get it too.
I don't blame him for it.
But that only helps himself, and I have a more humanitarian approach that, I want everyone to be free, not just myself.
Well, I'm the same way as you, Aria, although I will acknowledge not everyone wants to be free, in which case they can have someone tell them what to do. But everyone who wants it should have it. And I agree with you. Like, I just can't just stand by and do nothing as people are being oppressed who do not want to be oppressed. And so I think working towards a better world is important. And I think that the Free State Project and the New Hampshire migration is the most successful example of how libertarians can actually achieve those goals. And so for him to S-talk people who want to move together and actually have an effect, because he just straight up denies in a lot of cases a lot of the wins that we've had here, and maybe it's not for him, that's fine, but to get on the air and say that, it's only for 3 different types of people, I forget what it was the
he
night
said
you were on.
people who live in the Northeast already, and he wouldn't even accept that there's winter in like Tennessee.
Yeah.
But anyways.
His list excluded me and wouldn't have had me here in New Hampshire.
Me either.
At the very least. And that was the reason. This is a silly list, Mark. I'm here in New Hampshire. I love it.
Yeah. I don't like it being too cold or whatever, but, to me, it's worth it to be around freedom-loving people. Like,
Mark
for
has
people
a
that
long
actually
list.
care about freedom, they should be here.
Absolutely. And, Mark disagrees because he's got this long list of places that, in theory, could do the same thing, just in a different place like the Honduras or whatever. You get enough libertarians there, and you could replicate the Free State Project in a place that is freer, but you're starting from ground zero there with just a possibility, just an idea. Here in New Hampshire, there's actually stuff already happening.
And I don't see why he doesn't understand that there's more of a barrier for moving from, like, Texas to New Hampshire, or instead of from Texas to New Hampshire, there's more of a barrier to moving to Honduras. Even if it's
a huge barrier for the average person.
Even if it's slightly more similar weather, I hate humidity so much I wouldn't want it more humid than San Antonio.
That's the other thing with Mark is he cannot...
All right, thanks so much.
Oh, he's gone. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. He cannot empathize with somebody who's not in Mark's situation. So Mark's... I was listening to the
I've noticed that
episode.
as well when he was like, all you have to do is fly internationally all the time and just plop your feet in the Mariana Islands. Like, yeah, that's good for people who are like millionaires, but the average person can't just hop an international flight and go to Honduras whenever they want.
I don't know. I don't think he can remember what it was like to be the average person, which at one time in his life he was, So, I think he's lost connection with that. But I remember, I think one of the things he said on that show last week, I think it was the Wednesday night show that you were on, Bonnie.
Yep.
And so if people want to go back and hear it, I don't know. I'm not recommending you do this because it's just the same old caterwauling he's been doing for the last few years. But I think he basically said, "Oh yeah, you just need to rearrange your life so you can make money on the internet."
That's what he said. Yeah, he said you have to be able to make money online, and then you can do it.
Okay, so you're basically cutting out probably 90% of the potential movers right there, because
the internet's not that great in a lot of these third world countries that are willing to let you do this in the first place.
Well, let's just presume there's good internet. Okay, let's give it that. Let's give that to him. Okay, fine. But that's not appropriate for most people. Like a plumber, for instance, is not going to be able to I'll just rearrange my whole career, everything that I've built. I mean, it's enough that we would be asking somebody to move a business, right? To pick up, if they have a business, if they're not just like an employee of something who can get another job. And there's a million jobs. If you want a job, if you don't care where you work, literally, you can work anywhere you want in New Hampshire right now. They are hiring everywhere, every single place. I think a gentleman was here the other night who we all know, and he's working at Walmart overnight. They're paying $19.50 to start, and they're desperate. They need people, and they're not the only ones. So if you just want to work a job,
dude, the McDonald's here doesn't even open on some days.
There's a gas station here that's supposed to be 24 hours a day. It is no longer 24 hours.
Yeah, they need staff. Everyone does, so they're paying top dollar for it.
Jobs are easy to find, but for somebody who's willing to move a business, that's a huge ask. And to try to tell people like that, to tell an entrepreneur, oh yeah, just leave your business and all your expertise behind and work on the internet, and then you can move to my island paradise. It's ridiculous fantasy. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. And you can join us here. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
So we were talking the other night about the arrests in New York City at some restaurants, the Cheesecake Factory and apparently Applebee's as well. Groups of people who, wanted to get served some food, but were not willing to show a vaccination passport. Were subsequently arrested, I believe, charged with criminal trespass.
Well, I do oppose the vaccine passports. I have to say, people getting arrested for insisting on being served at a Cheesecake Factory and an Applebee's sounds like it belongs in a South Park episode. They took my Applebee's away.
The fact that it was like their line in the sand is what really makes it sound like South Park World.
I need my chicken tenders.
Well, and I think that that definitely backs up what Bonnie was saying earlier. Although that said,
you do have to have a line in the sand somewhere.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation because it is similar to the sit-ins in certain ways, in that people were saying, hey, if you're serving those people over there, you should be serving me because we're all, members of the public and, you're purportedly open to the public. Now, as a libertarian, that kind of rubs me the wrong way in that I feel like, as you said earlier, Aria, a business owner should be able to decide for themselves. But in this case, they're not really deciding for themselves like they were in the case of the sit-ins, where Woolworths was segregated as a business policy. In this case, the business policy is to simply do whatever the government gang tells you in New York City.
That's why government discrimination is the worst form of discrimination, because everyone has to do it, and you don't get a choice of just taking your business to the one down the street.
Right. And so now we've got another situation, apparently, according to Art Valley 818_ on Twitter. New York Police Department has arrested a veteran because he went to Panera Bread without proof of vaccine. I'm just going to play you some of the audio here.
Give him the flag. The flag does not touch the ground. The flag does not touch the ground.
Now, right out the gate.
Did you say something about the flag touching the ground?
Yeah.
He said you can't let the flag touch the ground while the United States is arresting him.
And he was really upset about it, right? And you could hear frustration in his voice. Well, screw that flag. That's all the more reason he should hate that stupid flag.
That's the thing.
That's his religion.
When I saw the headline of this video, I thought, oh man, this guy's getting arrested. All right, let me check this. Oh God, right out the gate. He's literally trying to hold on to the flag. The police, of course, are stripping the flag from him. And as you pointed out, Bonnie,
you have to carry the ark on the magic rods on your shoulders, whatever they're called.
The team that you are holding this flag for is doing this to you. Now, I understand the United States government isn't the same as New York City, and it's New York City's vaccination passport, but the U.S. government is not your friend. They are not on the side of freedom.
The White House just came out with a statement saying the unvaccinated are killing people, basically, and they have a winter full of death and serious illness ahead of them.
You should pull that statement up if you can find it. It's been passed around all over the place in the last 24 hours.
I'm sure my winter will be as deadly as it's been for the last 30-something years, which is not very deadly at all for me.
I'm more likely to die of freezing to death if the power goes out than die of, COVID or something like that. Let me go on, though, with some of this here.
Better hope you...
One, two, three,
of the United States.
5.
I count. Violated. I cannot eat.
There are at least 5 or 6 uniformed cops milling around. There's only really 1 or 2 that are actually in the process of arresting him, because he's not meaningfully fighting them or anything like that. He's just, making a statement as he's being arrested about the Constitution. And that's a dead letter at this point. If it ever was in effect or in any way, effective, as I believe Lysander Spooner put it, it was powerless to prevent the tyranny that we have, or has authorized it, one or the other.
In either event, it's useless.
Exactly. Let me go on.
My sisters and brothers cannot work. And the NYPD, I'm not resisting. I'm complying 100%.
Now, let's talk about what he just said there. My sisters and brothers cannot work. He says, I cannot eat. My sisters and brothers cannot
work.
They
took away my Cheesecake Factory.
Well, okay, but I want to be fair to these folks here, Aria. I mean, I've done more than drive through New York City. I've spent a few, probably a couple weeks over the last few years. I've in total I've spent in New York City, maybe 3 weeks or something like that. Because Mark and I used to go up for more than a decade for 2 nights or 1 night or 2 nights, whatever.
Right, for the Talkers Convention and stuff?
For the Talkers Convention, which we'll probably never go to again because they're still having it in New York and there's all kinds of,
Yeah, this year you had to be vaccinated.
Yeah, it was at a college campus or something like that.
Yeah.
Not even going to be an option. But when we were going, when you're in New York City, you don't have like Walmart Supercenter or Hannaford International Grocer or, full-on grocery stores. Those things don't exist, at least not that I've seen. I mean, maybe there are some of them. I know they exist somewhere, but in my walks around, say, Manhattan, I've never seen it.
There's obviously going to be a Walmart Supercenter somewhere.
It's outside
in
of
New
the
York
city. No. Actually, specifically, I think Walmart doesn't exist in New York City. I think you have to go out to like White Plains or something like that, some town outside of the city to go to a Walmart. And so
that's weird.
For your average city dweller,
what do they have then?
That's the thing.
If they don't have Hannaford's or any of these others,
that's the thing. What they have is sort of these corner markets, basically. And what's the word for it? Bodega, I think, is the word. And so you can go into these things. Some of them have like fresh fruits, and some of them, they've got like some meats, and so you can get food in these places. But it is not like what we're used to here, where in Keene, New Hampshire, we can select from 4 different mega grocers or whatever, and go in and get all manner of different things. You go into this little shop. It's like maybe the size of this studio in the next room. I mean, it's not, it's just a little corner shop kind of thing.
So it's just like they have fruit, and that's what they have.
Yeah, you get the fruit that they have, and, you take what you can get. Now, there are some guys on the side of the road sometimes, like the street vendors. Sometimes they got fresh fruit, so you can find...
Right, but if you want vegetables or something, you go to the next bodega, right?
I guess, like, I've never actually gone food shopping in any meaningful sense, but I've been around the city enough to see that basically city people just eat out.
Okay.
I mean, if you live in the city... You eat out because, in a lot of cases, because there's not that much as far as like shopping that you can do. Most of them don't have a car, so like if you're going to go to the grocery store, you're going on the subway, and you're going in a taxi cab or something like that. So you're literally carrying back to your apartment your groceries. So it's not like we can do here where we just load up the whole back of the car, load up a chest freezer, load up whatever you got at the house. You can load up your fridge with one shopping trip there. It's like whatever you can carry in your hands is what you're taking home. So it's kind of a different world for a city dweller. So when he says he can't eat, he probably actually means he's having a difficult time feeding himself.
Okay.
But if you want to weigh in, if you're in the city and you want to weigh in on this, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Omicron is now the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the U.S., accounting for nearly 3/4 of all cases, according to the U.S. government's Centers for Disease Control. It's a stunning turnaround that has taken place in less than a week. Our Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The CDC says that 73% of COVID-19 infections in the last week were caused by Omicron in America. 7 days ago, that number was just 4%, with Delta still dominant. The news came on the eve of President Biden's address to the nation. No new restrictions are to be announced, says the White House. Just a fresh reminder of the importance of boosters and a stark warning to the unvaccinated about the risks the president will say they're running.
Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
This is not a speech about locking the country down. This is a speech outlining and being direct and clear with the American people about the benefits of being vaccinated, the steps we're going to take to increase access and to increase testing, and the risks posed to unvaccinated individuals.
U.S. markets fell Monday as fears grew over Omicron's potential economic impact. Economic growth for the U.S. has also been revised down after President Biden's Build Back Better bill appeared to be scuppered in Congress. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from the New York Stock Exchange.
All the major indices ended the day down, with the Dow tumbling 430 points, or 1.2%. The S&P and Nasdaq were also both down just over 1%. Fears are growing over the impact of the Omicron variant on the economy, after New York warned of a surge in new cases over the coming weeks. A mask mandate has been reintroduced onto the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Companies linked to the recovery from the pandemic suffered most, with travel firms like Southwest Airlines losing more than 1% in share price. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs cut its US GDP growth forecast for the first quarter of 2022 from 3% to 2%, after Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia signaled he won't back Biden's $1.75 billion Build Back Better spending bill, appearing to leave little possibility for the plan to be passed by Congress.
The Biden administration is boosting fuel economy standards to fight climate change. New rules reverse a Trump-era rollback that had loosened the standards. FSN's Rachel Silverman has details.
The new rules announced by the Environmental Protection Agency would raise mileage standards for new cars and light trucks starting in the 2023 model year. The target industry-wide would be 40 miles per gallon by 2026. That's 25% higher than a rule finalized by the Trump administration last year and 5% higher than a Biden administration proposal in August. The EPA says the new standards would slow climate change, improve public health, and lower costs for drivers.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. Bring up whatever you want. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Aria.
So we were talking mostly about the bad news out of New York and New York State, where the new tyrant-elect there in New York City, he's planning on basically doing everything the health ministers tell him to do, which means, you can expect more COVID tyranny to come soon to New York City. New York State, there may be some coronavirus camps being built, but we haven't seen that bill get passed yet, although we're going to keep our eyes on it. I've got it on my calendar for a couple weeks from now. We'll check in on it and see if anything does transpire with that. But meanwhile, people are being arrested at restaurants like Panera Bread, Cheesecake Factory, and Applebee's. Most recently, it's a veteran who is being assaulted by at least 5 or 6 police officers as he just simply was trying to get some, a sandwich or some soup over to Panera Bread, and in the process of...
Why would anyone eat Panera? Everything there is frozen and old, and it costs twice as much as it would anywhere else.
Well, now, I don't know if it's frozen and old. They actually bake it up every night there.
No, they don't. That's a myth.
No, my ex-girlfrive worked there.
I've seen videos that suggest all of the macaroni and stuff arrives frozen.
Well, that's probably true.
I just think it's not that great. I've went there so many times with my old gay friends in San Antonio because they love it there, and it's just never amazed me. I hate their mac and cheese.
Well, that at least I know is
probably
frozen.
true. I'm not going to say there's nothing frozen there, and I don't hold stock with Panera Bread, but the baked goods are actually baked in the actual.
Maybe that's
location.
the issue. I've never actually had the baked goods. I just get like a sandwich or something like that.
Yeah, they got an overnight guy that does that work. Basically.
They used to be pretty good, to be fair. It was worth the extra money because it is like $30 a meal for a person instead of $20 like at most places. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's
just
more
fast
expensive.
Food. It's fancy fast food.
Yeah.
That's all Panera is.
But since COVID-19, dude, the one here in Keene, their quality has just plummeted. It's trash.
I've never went to it because it has the look of an old Panera Bread. It doesn't attract me at all because it looks so old. It looks like a Panera Bread from the 90s.
And you're their target market. Like young females. I think that's probably a target market for Panera Bread.
Yeah, I've never wanted to go to that one. It looks old.
I want to go to your phone calls here. We've got Turd Ferguson on the line in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Turd.
Yeah, hey guys, I just wanted to call in and respond to the guy caller that called in the last segment.
Yeah.
About Mark. Yeah, and I got to say, listen, I can kind of sympathize with Mark's position on all this, and I believe I've probably called in about this once before or something similar, but I got to say, and I'll try to be as coherent as possible. Sorry, I've been smoking a lot of marijuana tonight. So I believe that moving to New Hampshire is probably good if you're willing to make it your life's mission to make New Hampshire like an anarcho-capitalist utopia, and you're willing to go up there and put in a bunch of hours and fight for freedom and do all that stuff. For anybody else that kind of wants guaranteed freedom in a finite amount of time, or in a goal setting oriented amount of time, it's probably better off if you don't find freedom in New Hampshire and just find it elsewhere.
Well, get real, because there is no such thing as guaranteed freedom. You're not just going to uncover some sort of free commune or whatever where you can just live unmolested.
I mean, I think what you're getting at is Mark's idea of, just don't plant roots. Just travel everywhere. Just take flights everywhere.
The digital nomad?
Yeah, but that's so inordinately expensive for the average person. If you didn't buy Bitcoin back in 2011 or something like that, that's just a fantasy.
Well, I would recommend doing the Five Flags program, and that's what Caleb Jones, who's advertised on Free Talk Live before, that's what he recommends.
And what does that mean? What is a Five Flags?
So Five Flags.
Keep in mind, we're hearing this from someone who knows about this program but chooses to remain in Pennsylvania.
Well, listen, I'm building a studio here in Pennsylvania, so I'll always maintain this building in Pennsylvania. But Five Flags is when you maintain all aspects of your life in different countries. So you maintain your citizenship in one country, in your primary residence in one country, and your secondary residence in another country, and your investments in another country, and you buy all your stuff in a place with no income taxes, and you set up all your businesses in another country.
I think you'd already have to be rich.
So you support this idea?
No.
You think it's a good idea?
You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be rich. It's a good idea, and it works.
But you haven't done it.
I'm doing it now. I'm setting up. I'm right now. I'm setting up my businesses, or at least trying to, overseas, so that I don't have to pay taxes. And I plan on.
How are you not going to pay taxes if you're located in the United States?
Because I'm gonna spend 6 months and 1 day in another country that I'm not going to mention on the air right this second. But there are a lot of countries that you can go, and you can. And by the way, there are ways.
So you mentioned your studio for a moment ago, right? You like your studio. You want to keep it, right? You're attached to it.
I'm keeping the studio here in the music studio here in Pennsylvania. Yes, I'm attached to that. Yes.
So you're willing to spend more than half of the rest of your life away from this thing that you're attached to in order to have this precarious notion of freedom.
Sure I am, because I'm not going to, I don't need to, look, I am an audio genius. I can get a lot of
It's clear from your phone call.
Audio equipment. I'm sorry?
No, I'm joking with you. Go ahead.
Okay. I can get a lot of really good audio equipment that's small and sits on a small desk in my room in this foreign country in a villa, that I would purchase for a well below market value that it would sell in the United
When I
States.
hear people talking about getting a villa in a foreign country, that sounds to me like it's something that rich people can afford to do.
It's not. No, well, in some countries. I mean, if you're going to buy a villa in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai or something like that, yeah, that's probably going to be pretty expensive. But there are countries out there, and you got to do some research. I'm not just going to.
What about when COVID-19 shuts down the world and you can't just travel wherever you want?
Yes, you can. You can.
No, I'm asking, like in the future.
If
pretty
you've got
soon.
enough money to buy a private airplane, then you can, right? Turd?
No. All you have to do is get multiple. You can get multiple citizenships. You don't need to do all this nonsense.
Because that's cheap,
Or you,
right? Just getting a citizenship somewhere else, totally affordable,
Well,
right? What is it, $400,000 in St. Kitts?
It's more affordable than you think. It's more affordable than you think. It doesn't cost that much money. I'm telling you, it doesn't. I'm telling you.
Okay, what are we talking about?
Some countries, huh?
How much are we talking about?
I'm talking just like maybe a few grand tops.
The average American lives paycheck to paycheck, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. So let us know, where are you going to get your first extra citizenship?
Well, come on. You want me to just tell you that on the air? Come on, that's not
Why
fair.
is this? Is it like a
You
secret?
just mentioned this isn't a
He
scheme of
wants to
yours
get
in
out
order
of
to avoid
taxes.
paying taxes on the air.
You're going to blow up my spot.
What? Oh, it's a reserved spot? There's only so many of these available?
Well, it's going to be a pretty popular place if I say it on a radio show that broadcasts to 50,000.
Why wouldn't you want to tell people this? If you want to help people get out of tyranny, why
Let's go
wouldn't
buy
you
it while it's cheap.
Listen. Here's a couple suggestions I have. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going, but here's where I would look into.
It's an entire country. Wherever the hell it is you're going, you don't have to say what street you're going to live on. Just where the hell are you going to get a passport
It's a very
from?
little narrow strip of land in the Honduras called Mark Edge's Freedom Kingdom.
Oh, I see. Are you going down there? Are you going to Mark's Kingdom?
I've only asked Mark a few questions about his kingdom so far. It seems like a pretty badass place.
I bet Mark will give you a passport for a few grand. Thanks for the call tonight. Number here is 603-283-6160. Look, if it's so cheap and it's such a good idea, why wouldn't you want to share it with people? Like, for instance, Roger Veer. Longtime sponsor here on the show, on his YouTube channel. He just had a video put up about St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, it ain't cheap. Last I heard, it was $400,000 to buy the citizenship thing there in Nevis. Basically, they want you to invest in the country and, to bring jobs and buy stuff. But he's talking about it. He's telling the world about it. He's saying, this is what I did. If you can afford it, he thinks you should do it too. He's not afraid to explain it. More coming up.
You can't win if you don't enter, and you actually can improve your chances of winning a prize drawing if you wrinkle up your entry blank. I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com, and I speak from experience. Why this works: if they'll be spinning the drum before drawing, your entry blank will move around more than, and not adhere to, other perfectly flat entry blanks. And if they don't spin the drum and merely reach into a box full of other perfectly flat entry blanks, many of which are sticking together, yours will feel different to the person reaching in. When you win, act surprised. And if you're looking for work, this is a metaphor. For more tips on sticking out in a world where just too much blends into the blah, 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 hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Our education system is frankly government-run, government-funded, and we're dumbed down.
You could go down the laundry list of the different things that people would admit that the government did wrong or botched up or cost way too much, and it still doesn't have any effect on them. They still just bounce right back and say, well, we need government to do all these things. Well, yes, they make some mistakes. Yes, they spend billions of dollars too much. Sure, they kill innocent people around the world, but we need them.
We have to have them do these things.
I find it quite amazing that, you know, they say the first thing they seem to do is, turn to government. They've got the solution somehow.
Yep.
Goodness knows they
That's what they've been programmed to do by the government schools.
Exactly. Brainwashed. Absolutely brainwashed. And they're so dumb about it, they believe it's the case. However, you then ask the next question, if you dare to, is you say, well, okay, well, would you trust any politicians? And the first answer is no way.
Right.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you've got Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Aria.
And don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. We've got a social media website. It is social.freetalklive.com. It's run by us, not the big tech companies, not the mega corporations that want to tell you what you can and can't say. You can have a lot more freedom to express yourself over at social.freetalklive.com. It is a Mastodon-based system, which means it's open source, it's self-hosted, and it actually works pretty well. So head over to social.freetalklive.com. As we go back to the phones here, I believe, I think this is Major Payne. Major Payne, are you with us?
Yeah,
it's him.
You guys didn't scream. You did not expect you to call her back so quick.
Here you are.
Yeah. So, let's see. I want to start with the origination of the Wuhan virus. It was probably a good year before it hit our shores. There's an Olympiad of military athletes. All the, like the Green Berets, basically from every clan around the world. They have this Olympiad. And this thing happened in a lake or along a river that was adjacent to the Wuhan Viral Institute. The theory is that one of the infected fish from one of the holding ponds jumped the dam or busted out during a bad rain or whatever. But, there were all kinds of colonels and whatnot that were honored in their countries that went back and died before the spread of this thing hit wherever it was going to hit. So this thing got spread through the world right quick. All right. And then we go to this South African
only
area.
concern with that is that you say a lot of these people died. COVID-19 doesn't generally kill people.
Well, there's a lot of places in the world that are deficient in certain minerals and vitamins. This is a disease that attacks the telomeres.
But these are, as you said, colonels, and they're Green Berets and from around the world in different countries. I mean, they're in top-notch physical condition regardless of where they're from.
Correct, but if you're
COVID-19 doesn't kill people like that.
If you're nutritionally deficient, this thing can take you out.
Well, the colonels are probably not in top shape. Those are fat bureaucrats
True.
and politicians.
But you're also not nutritionally deficient if you're competing in an Olympiad for
true.
Green Berets. I mean, come on, man. These people were 250 pounds of raw muscle.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a lot of theories about where this thing started. I don't really think it matters. What matters is where this is going. What matters is what they're doing to us.
We still have this Wuhan Institute, and they have not quit working, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this thing just hit Africa, and Africa has been dosing with quinine or some variant thereof to fight malaria for, by God, ever since the Brits invaded the damn thing, about 100 years ago at least. And they have... So I'm thinking that they have had to reform this virus to attack that populace.
Who knows?
The variant that's coming out of there is much less, it's more dominant as far as infection, but it's much less heinous to its host. And if you look at viruses all down through history, their theory is not to kill their host, because if they kill their host, they cannot reprocreate. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, but they'll get weaker if they don't kill. They'll still get weaker and weaker over time if they don't kill the host because they. Yeah, the
so
immune
what would the
system beat it.
government's goal be in this scenario of creating a weaker strain of the virus that doesn't kill the host? What would the government's goal be?
Well, that's not the government's goal. This is just a twist that the snake took on them. They can't control this thing. They've never... Last time Obama threw a flu shot, he killed more people than he saved.
Thank you, Major Payne, for the call tonight. The number here is 603-283-6160. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a lot like the people who spend time obsessing over 9/11 and trying to figure out who really did 9/11. Was it the Bilderberg Group? Was it the, George W. Bush? Was it, who was behind this?
Well, I feel pretty sure, based on the collapse of Building 7, that the towers were not brought down by planes, for whatever that's worth. But I don't know who did it.
Yeah, I don't know either, but people obsess over this stuff, and they've been obsessing over it for years, and it's like, to me, what mattered most was what they did to us afterwards. The Patriot Act, the Department of Homeland Security, the rise of the total authoritarian police state.
The 20 years of unending war.
Yes. So to me, that's what matters here, is not who at the Wuhan lab was responsible or who funded it or whatever. I mean, that's a sideshow as far as I'm concerned.
I do have the quote from the President Biden.
Oh, yeah. This was getting passed around all over the place. This is like
speaking of, what they're still doing to us.
Holiday wishes from the White House.
This is the quote that was getting passed around a lot because it's one of the craziest little paragraphs. And this is at whitehouse.gov. We are intent on not letting Omicron disrupt work in school for the vaccinated. You've done the right thing, and we will get through this. For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm. I have an article.
I don't particularly find that shocking or alarming or anything like that. It's just the same crap they've been saying.
It's a little bit more in your face of like, all right, you're going to die this winter.
We're going to kill our families and friends and stuff. Oh, good thing they got the virus then, and it's going to keep them safe, right? It's just garbage. It's nonsense. It's more of the virus is totally not effective, but you're going to kill the people who got the vaccine is totally effective, but you're going to kill people who got the vaccine because you're unvaccinated. What kind of garbage line is that? And that's essentially what they're saying.
It's total fear-mongering.
If all the unvaccinated die, I mean, don't shed any tears over us because we did choose to remain unvaccinated, and That would just be us reaping the consequences that we had coming.
Consider me unconcerned about what's coming this winter as far as that's concerned. But I got a couple of other quickies here that I've been holding on to for a couple days. Just some world updates for you. Netherlands going into strict Christmas lockdown, according to Reuters, over Christmas and New Year's. They say to try to contain the highly contagious Omicron variant. Of course, none of this stuff worked before, so this isn't going to work now, but nonetheless, they're going to try it all again, including closing non-essential so-called shops and services like restaurants, hairdressers, museums, and gyms will be closed until Sunday, January 14th. So those folks
When are people going to wake the hell up? The whole point of the lockdowns was just until we can get the vaccine, or actually it was just so we don't overwhelm the hospitals and flatten the curve, and then it was so we can get the vaccine out there, so we can get people, people are vaccinated.
Yeah.
And here come the lockdowns and masks again.
All over again.
None of the crap you did to appease your government masters made a difference.
Nope, now you're going to have to sacrifice another month's worth of revenue, presuming they actually do let this up in January, which will be in the middle of wintertime. And by that time, they'll see that people are still dying or they're getting cases because, they don't report the deaths that much. It's more the cases.
What a random date. If we're locking down for Christmas, I kind of get the logic, at least, is supposed to be, people will gather during Christmas, but then why all the way 2 weeks into January?
Because they can.
Yep.
Yeah. Quote, the Netherlands is again shutting down, according to Prime Minister Mark Rutte. That is unavoidable because of the fifth wave that is coming at us with the Omicron variant.
5 waves in 2 years, people. Come on. We're just going to have to deal with this thing and get on with our lives.
Other measures include a recommendation that households receive no more than 2 visitors and that gatherings outside are limited to a maximum of 2 people.
Did you say recommendation or requirement?
Well, you know how the news is when they'll say one thing, but it may actually be a requirement. It's not clear. According to this. So that's a little bit there for from the Netherlands. More closer to home, Ontario province in Canada is rolling out a new suite of restrictions for businesses and social gatherings as they contend with a spike in COVID-19 cases. This according to CBC.ca, the official government.
Who could have seen this coming this winter if only we had more nurses and doctors for hospitals.
Effective at 12:01 a.m. yesterday, indoor social gathering limits will be reduced from 25 people to 10 people, and outdoor gatherings are reduced from 100 to 25. Doug Ford, I believe he's the cousin or brother of that old crack-smoking mayor in Toronto, Rob Ford. You remember that guy from a few years ago? He says, we need to meet this variant.
Doug Ford.
Doug Ford's his brother. I believe the guy who's dead, the crack smoker's name was Rob Ford. But
I thought that Doug was the crack smoker.
It wouldn't surprise me if Doug smoked some crack too. We need to meet this variant head on. We need to do everything we can to push back. So they'll be reducing capacity at businesses like restaurants, malls, gyms, personal care services down to 50%. Marinas, boating clubs, pharmacies, indoor recreational. So the same old crap coming down your throat, shoving down your throat once again here from governments all around the world.
It'll be here in New Hampshire in just a few weeks.
We'll see about that. So far, Sununu seems to be worried about his prospects for getting reelected next year. But you may be right, Arya. We're coming up. Or tomorrow. See you then. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Omicron is now the dominant strain of COVID-19 in the U.S., accounting for nearly 3/4 of all cases, according to the U.S. government's Centers for Disease Control. It's a stunning turnaround that has taken place in less than a week. Our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks, reports.
The CDC says that 73% of COVID-19 infections in the last week were caused by Omicron in America. 7 days ago, that number was just 4%, with Delta still dominant. The news came on the eve of President Biden's address to the nation. No new restrictions are to be announced, says the White House. Just a fresh reminder of the importance of boosters and a stark warning to the unvaccinated about the risks the president will say they're running.
Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
This is not a speech about locking the country down. This is a speech outlining and being direct and clear with the American people about the benefits of being vaccinated, the steps we're going to take to increase access and to increase testing, and the risks posed to unvaccinated individuals.
U.S. markets fell Monday as fears grew over Omicron's potential economic impact. Economic growth for the U.S. has also been revised down after President Biden's Build Back Better bill appeared to be scuppered in Congress. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from the New York Stock Exchange.
All the major indices ended the day down, with the Dow tumbling 430 points, or 1.2%. The S&P and Nasdaq were also both down just over 1%. Fears are growing over the impact of the Omicron variant on the economy, after New York warned of a surge in new cases over the coming weeks. A mask mandate has been reintroduced onto the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Companies linked to the recovery from the pandemic suffered most, with travel firms like Southwest Airlines losing more than 1% in share price. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs cut its US GDP growth forecast for the first quarter of 2022 from 3% to 2%, after Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia signaled he won't back Biden's $1.75 billion Build Back Better spending bill, appearing to leave little possibility for the plan to be passed by Congress.
The Biden administration is boosting fuel economy standards to fight climate change. New rules reverse a Trump-era rollback that had loosened the standards. FSN's Rachel Silverman has details.
The new rules announced by the Environmental Protection Agency would raise mileage standards for new cars and light trucks starting in the 2023 model year. The target industry-wide would be 40 miles per gallon by 2026. That's 25% higher than a rule finalized by the Trump administration last year and 5% higher than a Biden administration proposal in August. The EPA says the new standards would slow climate change, improve public health, and lower costs for drivers.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
A mouse is eaten. It is an event that happens millions of times a day, all over the world. Other mice are wiped out by disease or starvation. If you collected all the mice that die in one day in New York City, they would weigh 8,000 pounds. If you stacked up an equivalent amount of dead humans or even mangy dogs, it would be considered an atrocity. It seems no one has any respect for the mouse. But then, why should they? The plankton of mammals. They breed rapidly. They all look identical, and they once spread the plague. No one weeps for the mouse, for its life is worth less than zero. just another cold fact of life on this horrifying planet.
This is the Onion News Network.
The latest episode of Declare Your Independence is next, here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines